lives where we go for quite some time. We're thankful to everybody for being on. Appreciate you. Hopefully everybody's doing well. As always, this is Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives from mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And we're going to go ahead and get into today. Got YouTube up. How's everybody doing? Getting Facebook up and going. Anybody get the podcast going as well? Matter of fact, I guess we do the podcast. Podcast pretty easy to get going. But prayerfully, you guys have been doing all right. Prayerfully, everybody was able to attend yesterday and early today for Thursday Rising Prayer Session and all that great stuff. So we are thankful and grateful to have you guys with us. We're probably going to have a little bit of stuff popping up on Patreon today, so feel free to look out for that stuff as well. So we're excited. We hope that your day, once again, is going well as always. Like I said, we give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree, and has many different tinctures or natural medicines that we're able to use as a diaspora to continue to improve and what we're trying to do every day. Oh, actually, I just realized I'm sitting up here doing all this extra stuff. Yeah, but hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to rest some. And I do not say happy, you know what, today, because it is a fictitious, false, and propaganda-fueled holy day by the world. But we will talk about Thanksgiving. And if you didn't already see, those who are coming on different places or whatever, you probably already could tell, right, what we're going to be talking about. But we want to take time out to kind of get into this and take our time with this. A lot of people are not really aware of a lot of the stuff that's supposedly historical. And so, you know, we want to take time out to kind of label this stuff out, let you see what's going on. It looks like we already lost a bunch of people, but that's okay. Right. And, you know, people are so into the mode of trying to cancel folk that they can't really hear. So this becomes a difficult kind of message to be able to get into. And if we be honest, this is somewhat difficult for a lot of us because our families are very intertwined into this propaganda that we know today is Thanksgiving. And a lot of people don't know where it came from. Some people even keep invoking their God or deities, deists, etc., to be able to try and make this holy day work for them so they'll feel better about it. And the reality is that there's a lot of wild stuff that is attached to this over the years, even prior to it becoming a national propaganda type situation, or what you might call a holy day. So we want to go ahead and dig our teeth a little bit into this. We might not have as many people on as we normally do on today because of it being a holy day for a lot of people. But we're thankful and grateful for those of you who are on today. And we appreciate you so very much. I think we finally got all the platforms going on mine. So let's go ahead and get into this. Once again, we're thankful to have everybody on with us, whether you're joining us on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, or even the podcast. We appreciate you so very much as you're watching this live, if you're watching this later on. We're thankful to have you guys with us today. And we hope that some of what we have to say today is something that might be able to stimulate some thought process with you, help you to be able to, you know, do some study on it for yourself. Prayerfully, we won't get into a situation like many try to, where we immediately do this weird thing where it's like, hey, we're just going to come against you no matter what. Hopefully you have eyes to at least see somewhat and ears to somewhat at least listen a little bit. And hopefully your hearts are ready to receive. And this is not to do the white versus black thing, the Republican versus Democrat thing, the pro-Trump, anti-Trump thing. This is just to talk about truth. We're not here to give context without facts. We're not here to give facts without context. We want to make sure that we're on point with all the items that we're going to address today. So prayerfully, you're able to receive that you might continue to receive these things. And we appreciate you in advance for doing so. So let us say hello to everybody. How you doing, Sister Dawn? Hello to everybody on the podcast. Hello, everybody on YouTube. Hello to everybody on TikTok. Let's go through real quick. Hello, how you doing, Jay Sway? Jacob's House, Cole, Brother Alton, Tina, Minister Sharon. Going to be sending something to you guys soon. Hopefully everything went well with the surgery as well could be. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? Let's see. Big Brother Thomas, Sister Deborah, Jolene, Miss Pierce. I don't know how to pronounce it. Herbetek. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. Her Herbetek. I'm not sure. But thanks for being on with us. Brightborn, hello. Gray Rising, Dark Matter, hello, Bandino. Thanks for being a part of the community. Appreciate it. Let's see. To School for Cool. Okay. How you doing? US user 5337, etc. Namaste above. Hello, Eugene for the D. I think I missed a couple people. Daniel Parks. You said it. Oh, it's not that way today. Stop dwelling on the past. It's not that way today. Sure. Okay. So don't celebrate Thanksgiving then. I guess we've already started, but that's okay. My wife's name, once again, is Bloom and Flourish. So not the A and D, but the letter N. Bloom, Bloom, the letter N, and then Flourish, Flourish. Hello, Telly Houston. How you doing? Hello, Angelic. Sky, Shay, Healthy Junkie. Okay, hello. Tosha, everybody, thank you for being on. We appreciate you. If I missed your name, please charge it to my head and not to my heart. We're grateful and thankful that you spent some time with us here today. So, yeah, so even when somebody's like, you're just trying to eat, okay, like, go ahead and eat whatever you want. You can eat without it having to be part of something fictitious. But nevertheless, we're just trying to be honest about the day. Right. And that's a weird thing. Like, we had somebody already on. It's not like that today. You guys are just trying to make a big deal and blah, blah. It's not like that today. Well, I mean, if it wasn't real back then it's not real today. It's just, we have this weird play, right? Might I start here? How you doing, Domino? Thanks for being part of the community. Allow me to start here. Okay. Why do you even celebrate Thanksgiving in the United States of America? All right, boss man, appreciate you. Hopefully you're doing well. And even if you're going to celebrate Thanksgiving today, this is not me saying I have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. I've long, decades ago realized that I don't have any power over that. So this is not me trying to say you're evil. This is me trying to present you contextual facts and maybe a cultural context of something that we're not considering. How you doing, Sister Shima? So once again, like, do you know why you celebrate? And thank you, everybody, once again, on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, the podcast. Thank you for any gifts, likes, shares, etc., that you might, bestow upon us. All right. So when we are talking about Thanksgiving, the only reason you celebrate Thanksgiving and are trying your best to hold on to Thanksgiving is because it's propaganda. Who started Thanksgiving in the United States of America? Who made it a holiday? You said it's celebrated to be thankful for everything. Not really. It's celebrated more so for people to eat. People to eat, to watch 2 to 3 football games, and to be able to see family, which you can see anytime during the year. But because we're so in tune with the system, we haven't set up our own selves to be able to do things on our own time and with our own culture. Now, for some people, this is your culture you want to uphold, and that's fine. But once again, this is not about, like, for example, well, let me say this real quick and then let me stay on task. Thanksgiving initially, even from a Eurocentric perspective, when it first started out with Christianity, when Christianity was starting to be on the come up, and thanks, babe, for being on. My wife is on. The person who was asking earlier, she's on. Once again, find her at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish, right? But you got to recognize that even in Europe, when it originally started, Thanksgiving had nothing to do with food. You know what Thanksgiving had to do with? Right? You said that's why you celebrated. That's fine. Like, a lot of people say that's what they celebrate Christmas because Jesus is the reason for the season, even though the Bible in Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 1 through 5 tells you should have nothing to do with it because it's winter solstice, it's Saturnalian. You shouldn't be like other groups of people. That's why more pagans and witches and other people celebrate Christmas than Christians do. But nevertheless, right, you might be shocked to see that Thanksgiving just follows the same rhetoric. So once again, for example, in Europe, amen. Glad you found her. Amen. Right. And she has many different natural medicines, by the way, that you can go ahead and ask her about. She makes these things foraging by hand and literally putting the stuff together. But if we're going to talk about Thanksgiving, even in the Eurocentric mentality when it first originated, right? You have to realize that when Thanksgiving started, it started as a day of fasting or a period of time for fasting. If somebody said we're going to give Thanksgiving, even from the Christian perspective, and I'm not even a Christian, right? I am a follower of the way, but I'm not a Christian. However, even then, you have to realize that the Christians were doing Thanksgiving to fast. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it, Tasha. So if they were doing it to fast, then why are you not fasting? That's what a day of Thanksgiving is. Even in the Bible, when they put these Eurocentric words in for what the original words used to be, when they say a day of Thanksgiving, you should think to yourself, oh, we need to make sure that we're thinking about fasting. That's what the European mindset is behind Thanksgiving. So why do you do something different today? Once again, it's propaganda, right? You said in school they touch about the history of the Indians. Well, even with that, right? Calling us Indians and things of that nature, right? So Thanksgiving is a time of fasting. And a lot of us didn't know, right? But that's what it is. If you look it up, Thanksgiving is a time that you do not eat and you stop doing certain activities and in your family and different things. And it's a time for everybody to stop. And then if you want to talk about being thankful, you celebrate being thankful for the things spiritually that you have, waiting for manifestation into the physical. But for a lot of us, that's not what Thanksgiving is. How you doing, Sister Rhonda? How you doing, Minister Anais? Right. so when we're talking about Thanksgiving, we're not even being faithful to what Thanksgiving was before it came over to the colony. Remember, America was a prison colony first, and then the prisoners started getting a hold of the land and stuff, and then England came over and said, we'll make it our own colony. So we want to be honest about Thanksgiving from the beginning. Fine then. If you want to celebrate Thanksgiving, then don't eat. Fast. Turn off the NFL today. Fast from that. If you want to be honest, like if we want to make it a real thing. But the only reason why you celebrate it every fourth Thursday of every November is because Abraham Lincoln, through propaganda, said, we're going to go ahead and make this a national holiday to be able to not focus so much on how many natives he was killing, even though he himself was part native. Think about that. The hypocrisy even in that. How you doing, user 997 and elevating with David? Thanks for being part of the community, right? Like I'm not giving you anything that we can't look at. I'm not looking at anything that we can't see for ourselves. We can see this very clearly, right? Like we can see very clearly. So, the celebration of it and everything, you have to ask yourself, because the celebration is based off of a falsehood. Is it not? Right. And so if you say I celebrated, a lot of people do that. I celebrate Easter, but it's because I'm celebrating what Jesus did. First of all, his name wouldn't have been Jesus. His name would have been Yeshua, or some of you say Yeshua or Yahweh, etc. Right. But then also, why not celebrate the day that he actually would have passed? So the day he would have had really what a lot of people celebrate, the day he had, his last meal, so to speak. Because that's a different day than Ishtar. Ishtar is a moon goddess that came from the moon, right? That's why the bunny represents her fertility, and the egg represents supposedly what she came down in. She was the wife of Cush. Cush messes around and messes up. Then she becomes the wife of her own son, Nimrod. And then when Nimrod gets killed, because she's still being so promiscuous and having so many babies, she says one of the babies is what she was impregnated with by the rays of the sun, her own son, Nimrod. And then Nimrod impregnates her, and therefore Tammuz, who ends up dying anyways. But Tammuz supposedly was supposed to be the chosen one. Yeah, a lot of people are just showing up for the feast. No problem. A lot of people are going to show up for a feast because that's what you do. That's what you've been taught. Go ahead, be gluttonous, get as much stuff, take extras. Some of you might not have money for food or whatever, or this is a way to save money on food. Maybe some of you don't worry about setting up your time to visit your family. You only do it when your corporation tells you can. And so now, now's the day where they allow you to go see your family. But the reality is that this is propaganda, first and foremost. It's propaganda. And it was something to get you to take your eyes off of what was happening to native societies and to say, we're going to go ahead and act like everything's right as rain. There you go. Tammuz, he dies in that goring accident. And so you have ham, that Easter. What is it they used to do when I was the honey baked ham? Right? Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. So a lot of people don't even recognize it. You just go and do this stuff, not even realizing why the tables are set up. All these holy days you're having are all cultural. If I missed your comment, I'm sorry. If you just go ahead and put it back in, I'll try to, try to see it. You said the Thanksgiving meal is the end of the fast. This fast starts with Wednesday dinner as the last meal, according to who? I mean, if that's what you're saying that the Puritans did, are we going to be honest about these so-called Puritans, these pure people? These pilgrims that came over, when you call them pilgrims, and the reality was they were prisoners they didn't have room to kill in England, so they just sent them on a ship and hoped that the ship would fall, hoped that the ship would go underwater, and that would be it. And they wouldn't have to deal with them anymore. That was what they did. Remember, the Puritans were people who disagreed with the Pope of Protestantism, because people don't know that Protestantism has a Pope. You guys know that, right? Like, King Henry VIII wanted to keep having as many wives as possible and killing them off and doing whatever to get his heir and stuff. And the Pope wouldn't let him do it. So he separated, and as a FU, took the language of the poor, which were semblances of the Anglo language. You call it English or Anglo-ish, because it's not really Anglo or Anglo. And he decided to, as a middle finger, make that the language that they would use in the Bible instead of Latin or instead of French. Right? Uh-oh. There's something in my beard. But, so these are things that we don't realize. We're not aware of them, So we're sitting up here telling a story off of something that is incomplete. Right? The turkey, we could possibly say that represents the burned native and stuff. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm not in a position to disagree with you, per se. You said, is anything positive happening for you soon? Every time you breathe in and out, that's positivity. And if we learn more about ourselves, that's positive within itself. And if you can place yourself within yourself and humanity within yourself, then that's great. And that's ultimately the goal. As much as people think we're just trying to ruin their Thursday, ultimately the goal is to get you to recognize that we should learn truth, and that truth should be the thing that brings us together rather than separate us. See, the truth of the matter is that a lie is what's been bringing you together, but the truth separates you. But that's okay. Do you want to continue to be part of something that brings you together but keeps you in a negative context at all times? And you want to be part of something positive that creates a freedom for not you, but everybody across the globe. Except people don't have anything better to do than destroy your history and instead of build a future. Okay, Michael, am I the person destroying your history? Because I'm not the person that killed natives. I'm not the person who lied to you about the history in the first place. That's why it's his story. In his story, you can do whatever you want, but in the story, we got to be true. You see that? My wife said, what'd you say, baby? She said, celebrating Thanksgiving is celebration of the destruction of our people. And when people tell you that, a lot of people go, here you are, you trying to get past this or whatever. Like, no, like Abraham Lincoln is known by natives as a town destroyer. Every president is. You call them presidents, we call them town destroyers. Right? It's outright fallacy to say that these people love you and that you should be thankful for these corporations. You said who destroyed who here? Let's be serious. Yeah. And the Bible, and read your Bible, it'll bless you, right? In your Bible, it says you shouldn't be celebrating with these what people who are pagan are celebrating, and that's what you're doing. That's what you're dealing with. That's what you're dealing with. Yeah, and I'm not saying we need to be rude. Yeah, that's a great point. I don't think we should be rude about it. I'm not here being rude. Hopefully, nobody sees this as me yelling at you. I am 6'5.5". I do have a deep voice, even though my voice is somewhat gone right now. But I do have a deep voice, so possibly, you might see this as me coming off at you or whatever, and I'm in a very enclosed area. But this is not me raising my voice or telling you all. This is me telling you truth. You said this affects your life. How? I mean, you've decided to live in a lie, or people have taught you a lie. If you want to keep living in a lie, it affects your life as far as you keep living in a lie. If you decide to live in the truth, and you can come out of that and you can live in the truth, it would affect your life better as far as making sure that we don't celebrate the killing off of anybody. That's how it could affect your life. Now, you don't have to let it affect your life in that way. You can continue to say, I don't give a F about anybody who doesn't believe what I believe. Well, that's fine. But once again, even if it's just your life only, then that's a very selfish way of looking at things, right? My life is bigger than myself. So I think of things outside of myself. If it doesn't affect your life because you don't care about other people and part of humanity, then it shouldn't affect your life. And once again, I'm not here. Let's make this clear. Like everything we teach and everything we talk about, I'm not here to make sure that everybody's in agreement with me. I could, as much as I would love that to happen, being honest, I don't do this for that. I could care less. I'm not here to change the world or heal the world because the world is doing exactly what it's supposed to. I'm not here to heal people who are, heal a broken system because the system's doing exactly what it's supposed to, no matter what your color is, no matter what branch of government you lift up, no matter what Republican or Democratic doctrine you want to continue to espouse and betroth and profoundly pontificate, saturating the atmosphere with your mindset or whatever. I could care less about that, right? My goal is to say there's something different than that, and maybe you want to live in that difference, that truth, rather than a lie. Right? I'm gonna tell people who are in that system what's going on, but you have to make the decision. How you doing, Andre? You said truth sets us free. Most traditions are man-made and alienated from the Most High. Most definitely, most definitely. And how you doing, Virgo? Jeremiah? Is it E Smooches? I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but thanks for being on with us. We appreciate you guys being part of the community, right? So we have to see first and foremost, like, if we say, like, let me ask this: do you believe that propaganda is bad? Let's go back now, right? Because we're getting into the whole me defending my position. The reality is my position doesn't have to be defended. The burden of proof is not on me, it's on those that came before us, right? So first things first, do you believe that propaganda is okay? Now, there's some propaganda that is, if it's based off of truth, of advertisement and things, but really we know that we usually think of propaganda as somebody lying to you. So do you think that somebody lying to you is all right? Right? Do you think that somebody lying to you is okay? Like, let's just start there. Because if the whole thing is, I'm not going to change because I love the lie, well, then you might hate every single thing that I'm going to say. Yeah, Thanksgiving Day is a lie. Those who have an ear, let them hear. Yeah, we must always seek truth. Right. So if you've already made up in your mind, right, that you're okay with living in a lie, then yeah, this might not be for you. Everything that I speak is not for everybody. This is a cultural context. You said, what are my thoughts on the person who worshipped in Israel right now? I mean, what do you mean in general? Like, that's a very thing. But I'm not talking about that right now, in all honesty, because people are ready to go ahead and try and hem you up on that anyways. But we talk about that stuff. We have different platforms, different things. We've already talked about that. Today, I'm focused on Thanksgiving right now, if you don't mind. You said this world is made to confuse us and keep us distracted, right? Thanksgiving is confused. It's confusion. Murder is not a party. He said, I feel like I came late to a great discussion. He said, just don't celebrate, stay home, be by yourself, and let other people be together with their families. Just because I don't celebrate Thanksgiving, number one, doesn't mean that I need to be locked up in a house. Number two, why can't you just stay in your house and not have to say that everybody must believe what you have to believe? Why is your belief more important than mine? Right? I'm not stopping you from celebrating Thanksgiving. I'm not stopping you from actually listening to me either, to see if I'm not condemning you. I'm trying to give it cultural context that you might be unaware of. If your mindset is only that my telling the truth is destroying you, then you have to ask yourself, why are you so attached to a fallacy? Go ahead and eat and be merry, right? But just because you eat and be merry and you're in bliss, it doesn't mean it's not ignorance. Ignorance can be bliss, right? Somebody can get high. Somebody can get high 5 times in a row with extreme amounts of cocaine, and they could be bliss, but doesn't mean they won't die. You're right. But if that's what happiness is to you, is to base something upon a fictitious ailment that continues to permeate our society with depravity. and to lift up the murder and chemical warfare and the taking away of language and knowledge and then making yourself an American, right? Because remember the original definition of an American, right? Well, no, I wouldn't come over to get a plate. I don't know what y'all make anyways, right? Especially if you're dealing with pork and you're dealing with, I don't know who's making the mac and cheese and all that stuff anyway. So I'd be hesitant even if I was celebrating it. It's 222 up there, but I'd be hesitant anyways. But because I don't know you and you don't know me. However, even if it was to go past that though, your whole thing of being ad hominem, it doesn't make sense, right? Like you can't even hear. And like I said, this is why this is not for everybody. You got to have the ear to hear. If your ear is set to where, hey, I'm doing it because my daddy did it. I'm doing it because my granddaddy did it. I'm doing it because Abraham Lincoln said it was okay. Even if you don't know that's why you're doing it, then we just might not be able to talk to you that much, and that's okay. I'm not mad at you. You do what you do. How you doing, baby doll? Right? Like that's fine. You can do whatever you want, but you won't admit that it's propaganda. Once again, Abraham Lincoln told you to do that, and he told you to do it to get you to stop worrying about things like, for example, when he did the Emancipation Proclamation, 1862, when he writes it out, doesn't take effect until January 1st, 1863. When he did that in 1862, though, the same day he did it, he killed off hundreds of natives. And he only killed off hundreds, was going to kill off thousands. He kept the rest still in concentration camps and locked down, and he killed some of them off later, but he didn't want to kill off thousands on the same day because y'all might have seen what he was really doing. This is the same Abraham Lincoln. Same Abraham Lincoln that before he ran in 1860 and 1858, he told people, he wrote letters knowing that people were going to get upset. He people, hey, I don't think that black people deserve any type of, and Negroes. So Negroes includes Native people and black people, if you don't know, right? Lawfully speaking. So he said, I don't care about Negroes. I don't think that any person of color is as smart as a person who's colonial construct white, right? That's the same Abraham Lincoln. So if we're going to talk about this stuff, this is propaganda set up to get you and I to forget a whole group of people that are being killed off. And at this point have been killed off, or the remnants of us that are around that are trying to get back to who we were. You're trying to tell us, oh, you should give up yourself. Stop talking about this. Stop talking about the inconsistencies. Stop talking about the fact that there's not that you're saying one thing and doing another. And you're saying just keep on going with the flow. And some of us have decided that you don't have to be our standard anymore. We don't understand that. We don't stand under that. We don't have to understand that. Yeah, we know Abraham Lincoln's mother. She was matter of fact, he was Melungeon. Melungeon meant that his father was white, his daddy was a slave owner, which shows you how he got here. His mama was black native and black African. He was a Melungeon. Right? But you can be a Melungeon and still be a Sambo. Some of y'all call it Uncle Tom because you don't know who Uncle Tom was in the book and who Sambo was in the book. But he was a Sambo spirit. He didn't like himself. Yep, there you go. Y'all pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, right? What they tell us. However, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who a lot of people who say that swear they love, he said it's a cruel joke to tell a man. That was in an interview he did in an interview he did in 1965, right? Where he said it is a cruel joke to tell a man to pull himself up by his own bootstraps when he doesn't have any boots. And there's the rub. There's the rub, as Shakespeare would have said, as Hamlet would have said, right? To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it's nobler in the mind, right? To deal with all this nonsense that you guys are telling us to deal with, or should we get rid of it? Should we just say I'm done with it? They'd rather you just kill off yourself and kill off your culture. But there's the rub. If I do that, what happens to my people? Like these are people you lift up. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Shakespeare. By the way, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also has quoted the same things, such as, believe this was in 1967, so the year before he died, in the Summer of Love, which is when a whole bunch of stuff was happening. You thought Black Lives Matter was a thing. 1967 got that faded by far, right? And since people won't change, you just have the story of mankind repeating itself over and over again. But go back there, and he says that this is what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. I'm quoting. He said that when it comes to whites, This is what he said, not me. He said, when it comes to whites, he says, whites keep telling us this false Protestant rhetoric that says that it was by this hardworking Protestantism and hardworking Protestant work values that they were able to achieve the United States of America, when the reality is they made it off of the back of the Negro. That's what he said. But the same people that uphold him won't listen to that part and keep doing the same thing that their parents and their parents' parents have done. See, here's the wild part. And I'm sorry, babe, I missed what you said. What'd you say? You said there are 365 or 366 days in the year. Why choose ones that represent destruction to celebrate? Right. You know. And when somebody says something about it, the first thing, oh, you don't know it. That's old. This is how it is. This is what we really mean. Blah blah. Like, no. Like, what does Thanksgiving actually mean? What does Thanksgiving actually mean? And you don't want to talk about that because you have to, like, first of all, when the Thanksgiving meal, some of the most famous pictures of the Thanksgiving meal, most of those are lies. And the ones that are real, you don't even know how to identify the ones that are real. If you were to look at a lot of artist renderings from back then and even today, when you look at the Thanksgiving meal, do you know how the Thanksgiving meal happened? So you said 3 days ago, President pardoned 2 turkeys on the news instantly. You thought about, the Day of Atonement and stuff like that, the day of first death. Yeah, get over it. When it comes to us, never forget when it comes to others. Yeah, right. Well, this is what happened. You know that no Native women showed up to this so-called dinner that you guys say was about peace, right? There were probably some European women that showed up, but no indigenous women showed up. No women from the Wampanoag tribe and others showed up. You know why they didn't show up? Because it was only men. The men showed up with venison and showed up with vegetation to eat because, the Europeans still didn't know how to feed themselves yet. And Tisquantum, who you call Squanto, which we'll get into a little later, probably he's going to have to pop up a few times in this, but he was somewhat teaching them and some others that were around, but they didn't know how to feed. So they came there, and what they did was they wrote out a treaty. As much as you guys think that natives can't write, y'all do this weird thing where it's like a lot of people do this weird thing that natives couldn't write and African people couldn't write and people indigenous to Australia couldn't write, although they have many different writings and languages that existed beforehand, right? But if you're going to talk about what happened, they showed up to write out a treaty. A treaty is not because we agree with y'all. A treaty is because we know what y'all are about. See, Squanto is a key figure, right? Right? Squanto is a key figure in this, right? Squanto is a key figure. Tisquantum. You know why? Because Tisquantum, he could speak English because he was already a slave. So y'all think the slave trade and stuff is later on. They were already coming and enslaving indigenous people and bringing them back to Europe. They were already doing so. So Tisquantum was a slave who had been taken. He was a Spanish slave first, then he was sold. He became an English slave, and then he was able to get on this rickety boat going back and forth, right, to prison colonies, and was able to make it back and not die on the boat. He can't, right? So when the pilgrims showed up, you called it, right, the pilgrims, which were really prison, people who they didn't have space for in prison, and they sent them over because they were against Protestantism, right? That's why you now know them as the Puritans, them trying to say that they were better than Protestants, right? They came over, and when they came over, they couldn't feed themselves, even were dying, even started eating their own corpses and things that were in there. You said, well, we're talking about Squanto, but his real name is Tisquantum. Right, that's how you actually pronounce his name. And so when Tisquantum got there, they said this is stuff that's acknowledged, that's written out in historical documentation, and even in our story as well, in his story and our story, where when he got back, they were like, "Yo, something's wrong with him," because he had been enslaved. He had an enslaved mindset, and he came back and realized that his tribe had been killed off by the very people who had enslaved him, and that his wife and his child were dead. You said, I do know that England was ruled by King James, and that was supposed to be shocking to me. That was supposed to make me not believe anymore. I mean, Yeah. But anyway, so if you know about King James and King James being African and King James not even being a Christian and him writing out a whole bunch of different things, of or being the person to approve a bunch of different items being there. You see, King James was so-called black. King James was so-called African. He was African, right? He's a Moor. They called him. They said he had nappy hair. So, you need to figure that out within yourself, right? But I'm just saying, but that's not what I'm talking about. We can go there in a second if we have time. But what we're talking about is, once again, so Tisquantum, when they got there, remember, and some of y'all are younger enough, or some of y'all are old enough to remember this. I don't know if they teach it in schools anymore or not, because I don't send my children to school. We make sure that we teach them correctly at home. However, remember when Squanto was or remember in school they used to even teach y'all that Squanto, it was blessed. He just could randomly speak English. Praise God. Yeah, we must always seek truth. Yeah. Praise God. He can just speak English. And he was able to teach us. No, he was a slave. And he had a Sambo spirit. And when they came over there, he actually tried to help them. He said, yo, I'll help you make slaves out of them if you will allow me to have some ownership over slaves. He was so messed up in the mind off of what happened to him during slavery. Right? Like, that's what happened. So when they came together for this meal, they didn't even trust Squanto. They had somebody that would follow Squanto around. So when they came together for this meal, they were signing a treaty that said that you guys are allowed to have this land, and we're going to make sure that we can still have ours. So the natives, who could have been like, yo, y'all keep coming over enslaving people, said, you know what? We'll give you guys another shot. As long as y'all stay over there, we'll stay over here. We won't kill you guys off. And what happened? Chemical warfare, through disease and stuff like that on them, and wiped out whole tribes. That's a fact. That's not context without facts. That's not facts without context. That's contextual facts. How you doing, brother TG? If I didn't say so earlier, you said you believe in the commercial aspect of Thanksgiving, but it's without a doubt founded on death. Well, I mean, I don't believe in commercializing death, period, but I get what you're saying, I guess. I mean, I can empathize. So yeah, so we have this problem to where people know, we know that this is not righteous. We know that this is not cool. We know this is the killing off of people. We know that this is, straight up like, this is Holocaust. I know some people don't like me because people have said that they can corner the market and act like that term is the Holocaust, but there's many Holocausts that have happened, right? Look up the term Holocaust by definition, right? It was a killing off strategically of people, and these people would be put in camps. They're still in camps today, right? You just don't want to call them that. So you say they have their own territories and stuff, but they're still in camps today. Not able, dealing with alcoholism and all these other things or whatever. And you say, oh, look at these people. They can't get themselves together. It's so great that we took over the land. We'd be just like them. If it wasn't for us, if it wasn't for our truth, if it wasn't for manifest destiny, if it wasn't for the white man's burden, if it wasn't for the lost cause, if it wasn't for the doctrine of discovery, we'd be just like them. That's how they talked about. Right? Matter of fact, right? How do you define evolution? Somebody help me out. Or not even define evolution. What is the title of Charles Darwin's book that's so famous about evolution? Like, we can look up 1859. What is it called? Oh, I hear you. I hear you, Carrie. Well, it's something that you can come out of or whatever, but it's something that we're there because we say one thing, but we've had it ingrained in us. It's okay. So, what is the title of that book that Charles Darwin wrote about evolution? It's The Origin of Species, the theory of evolution. It says by not survival of the fittest, but what is it by I can't remember, by survival of the fittest or something like that. But then the one I want you to look at on top part of the title, it says, or by the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. The preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. Right? So even that, It's showing you what's going on at this time period. This is 1859. By the way, Rudyard Kipling, who writes the Jungle Book, he writes America and talks about they need to continue to have manifest destiny. This is a continued attempt to make sure that everything that's there is okay with killing off people and saying that certain people belong on the bottom. And shalom, how you do, Elohim child, right? Like this is a continued attempt in everything that's taught. And you think they stopped doing that? See, this is the thing that gets me. You think that they stopped doing that, although you'll tell people who are native, who are indigenous, whose families were killed, who are trying to make sure that they say, hey, remember my family, remember what you guys did, remember, so let's not repeat this again and again over and over again. And yet you think that you're not learning through the same system. A system that says, oh yeah, we should go ahead and keep this going. A system that still tries to throw Christopher Columbus in there. You think those same people who have used the same things are not using the same education? Like that's what we're being shown over and over again. People still saying shut up and dribble. Now they just don't call it shut up and dribble. Now they say you're anti-Semitic. You don't think it's the same thing? You just don't know the language. You don't know the culture enough to be able to hear it. Yep, to the victor goes the spoil. And here's the thing about that. Even when they say you have a victim mentality, look at you. You have a victim mentality. You always have a victim mentality. Well, you can't be a victim without a victor. And if you want me to stop being a victim, which by the way, I've long since stopped doing, but if you want me to stop being a victim as far as my community and my culture, then you have to allow us to get past trauma, deal with it, and make sure that we go ahead and do what we're supposed to do. Right? Like you got to allow us as a people to be able to come together. That's why stuff like Dr. Joy DeGroy is important. PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? To be able to recognize that not only by the colonial construct, Black people and white people had to be taught that this was necessary and okay to keep these things surviving. And now here you are living off of it and you're trying to say, oh, this thing is falling apart. No, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Babe, what'd you say, babe? You said whole system built around keeping us down because we are chosen by Creator, and the Satan, hates it. I mean, that's really ultimately at the end of the day, we're dealing with the spirit. You said, was it wrong? Uh-oh, here we go. Was it wrong? Yes, all war is, but they were already active in war. We just entered in one. Okay. So if you guys are active in war right now, and we were to go ahead and destroy literally 90-something% of your people in Europe, that would be okay then, right? Because I mean, you guys are actively at war against each other right now. I mean, England is in Wales, it's in Scotland, it's in Ireland. They don't have no business there. Free dairy, not Londonderry, right? So if your people were killed off, it'd be no problem, right? If that's right, and you said, yeah, well, if that's your mindset, then I'm glad that I'm, thinking about humanity more than you are. That's a cop out. They were already at war. We just came through and we destroyed them better. Yeah, but they weren't enslaving people just because they were Black. They were doing that. Yeah, Le Monde Envers, the world flipped upside down. I don't know what you're talking about. You said, yeah, we were rulers of this world and we sold it for a piece of fruit. And that part is the more part that people don't want to talk about. So you think it's just that we lost a war. But the reality is we taught the people, and then the people we didn't make sure that they had culture. We didn't make sure that their melanin values were right. We didn't make sure that they appreciated humanity. We dealt, like for example, the French that are supposed to be the most romantic people, have the most Roman antics out of anybody. The French are known for being the most egregious type of warrior that ever existed. Right, the trebuchet and things like that. The cannonballs that would be tied to each other that had spikes around them, things of that. That's the culture. And we thought that we would teach this culture certain things and that they would go ahead and adhere to love. And right? And if they went to war, like for example, like when you get the whole slavery thing, let's go ahead and deal with that, because somebody's going to be, oh, here we go. You guys were enslaving each other and sold each other and this and that. You guys were already at war and this and that. You know what first of all, the word slave is something y'all came up with anyways when y'all made Slavic people slaves. But you know why somebody would be either an indentured servant or have to be an indentured servant for a long time? If you went against a group of people who were trying to kill you off and you decided to fight, right? Didn't have a prison industrial complex, then you probably were going to make sure that these people had to serve. And in our cultures, a lot of our cultures, when you talk about Moorish or African or Alkebulan or Ethiopian, et cetera, Cushitic cultures, Zulu culture, et cetera, when you're dealing with this, they're going to have to learn how to be like you, at least as far as the peaceful side, because we can't have you coming in and trying to kill us off. Now, am I saying that every single African tribe was always righteous? Of course not, because there's wickedness in the heart of many different men and many different tribes. We're not going to act like Papa Doc, Baby Doc, I'm sorry, what's his face, Idi Amin and others. We're not going to act like they don't exist. We're not going to act like there's no such thing as a John Lee Malvo who's taught by somebody else, right? But I'm not going to we got to get past that dehumanized piece, right? Right, and that's why people talk like that. I'm sorry, you said we have to be strong and resist the tricks. These holidays are the cheap fruit. Yeah, and in reality, that's why a lot of people have a problem. It's like because we were dehumanized, and so we as people who say that you said we're not human, well, we're starting to cover the power. You've dehumanized us so much that you think we're going to do the same thing that you did, which is dehumanize you. And that's not my culture. That's not my people's heart. When we say we want freedom, it doesn't mean we want you to be in chains. For you to be free, it meant that you had to put us in chains. For us to be free, we just want all to be free. Right? You said Hamites don't have the same interests as Shemites. We were sold by Ham due to jealousy. Some of that's true, yeah. Some of that's definitely true, for sure. A whole lot of that's true. Even in that, right? So even when you're talking about that, are you talking about Shem versus Ham? Are you talking about, Put versus Cush, or Cush versus Kemet, or Kemet versus, the list goes on and on, right? Do you even know, like a Celtic person, Celtic people were actually Africans that, if you're looking through history, actually made their way up through all the way up to where they are now, to where you only think Celtic people exist in Ireland? Like, who are we talking about? Right? Like, that's very true. And we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about the fact that there's a lot of people who sold a lot of Shemitic people. Hey, Grand Rising, Sister Barbara. How you doing? Sister Sharice? You said, I just want to live with my people in peace. They can do whatever they want away from us. Yeah. And ultimately, that's huge. You said you're talking about all skin folk and all skin folk and kinfolk, and will sell you for liquor and salted fish. Sure. But we have to be aware of it. Matter of fact, that's what Balaam doctrine is. If those of you who've heard us talk about Balaam doctrine, Revelation chapter 2, verse 15, you have to recognize that was made by somebody who was supposed to be a prophet of the Most High, who was a prophet of the Most High, but he loved gold and something else. So he, came up with a whole doctrine to destroy Israel to, make some money, and then try to get over it at the end. And they were like, no, too late. Thank you. Just like Judas Iscariot did, sells out the Messiah. And then all of a sudden he tried to give the silver back. They were like, no, it's your silver. You did what you're supposed to. Keep it. And ends up hanging himself, right? So, we're having a conversation where people are trying to make us something that we're not. See, you have to ask yourself, and all this stuff that you try to make natives, and you try to do the Candace Owens thing and try to be like, oh yeah, all natives did was eat each other and foolishness like that. And all the things that you're saying, you're doing it to take off accountability of yourself and of your culture. Before people came over, natives were not using chemical warfare. Matter of fact, they still never used chemical warfare. You said religion to something else. Well, the word religion just means what a legion of people repetitively do over and over again. So I'm drinking water. A lot of people are going to drink water today. that means that that's religious by definition. I could care less about your religion. I want to know what your values are as far as what your culture is. Your culture will determine your beliefs. Your beliefs will determine your emotions. Your emotions will determine your feelings. Your feelings will determine your mood. Your mood will determine your effort or energy. And your effort or energy will determine your habits. And your habits, if you're not careful, become a bastardized version of the culture that should have been there in the first place. You said that you say that that's why you dislike her. Yeah, well, yeah, she did say that. Joe Rogan, she said on Joe Rogan show, and even Joe Rogan, as much as he tries to act like he's this ally and all that, but be doing wild stuff anyways. Joe Rogan was like, even he was like, yo, like, that's a lot. Are you really want to go? Like, that doesn't bother you? She was laughing. She said, I don't care at all. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me at all. Uh-oh, poison darts and arrows are chemical warfare. Okay, fine. Okay, if you want to go there. All right, when police throw mustard gas in the crowd, when police throw certain gases, your IVS gases and things like that, a lot of gases that are used on crowds today are not even allowed to be used in war. Former military member right here. We're not allowed to use some of the same stuff the police use on black or white people in your great nation. Correct? Let's not go into chemical warfare and how like ridiculous it is. Let's not go into chemical warfare and how places like Flint, Michigan, and stuff, and all the towns around the country that do not have clean drinking water. 100% of them are the most focused places where what you call African Americans live in the United States. All of them. I'm sorry, you said, so if a guy in a school with a gun, so if a guy goes into a school with a gun, he's more evil than the guy who goes in with a knife. I mean, that doesn't make sense. I get what you're trying to do, but apologetically, it doesn't make sense. You should say it like this. Let's do it like this. If a guy goes into a school with a gun and he shoots only people, right? Because I guess what you're trying to say is all natives have knives and all white men had guns. That's what we're trying to do. So let's stay on that. Let's use your example. I didn't make it up, but let's just use your example. It's not a really great example, but let's just go with it. So if the guys with guns go into the people with knives in school, or the people with knives in schools, make sure that they teach them and help them on tests and do certain things. And the guys with guns, once they start getting A's, they start killing them off. And then any of them that survive, they say, you better make sure that you go ahead and do what we say from this point on. Then I would say that that's wrong. Right? If that's what we're doing. Right? I know what you're attempting to do. And it was somewhat clever, but it doesn't really make sense apologetically. I get what you were trying to say though. Right? And like if you're trying to say that natives had knives and were killing each other, like that's like, watch this. You ready for this? That's the whole black on black crime, mindset is fallacy, and it's utterly ridiculous and somewhat steeped in a heaping pile of stupidity. If we just be honest, like if white people are around white people, they commit crime against white people. If Mexicans are around Mexicans, they'll commit crime against Mexicans. If Canadians are around Canadians, they'll commit crimes against Canadians. If Shui people are around Shui people, they'll commit crime against Shui people. Right? If Tsalagi people are around Tsalagi people, they'll commit crime against Tsalagi people. If Russians are around Russians, they'll commit crime against Russians. That's just the way it is. It's the same type of argument. See, and that's the truth about Thanksgiving. If we really want to be honest, is that when somebody says, look what these people did and hold you accountable, you say, well, some of you guys have killed people before. So what? So have you. Right? So take that off the board. If European people are killing European people, that's why they had to, by the way, remember, that's why they started the whole Crusades, was because that too many European people were killing off Europeans. The Pope, who's the king of kings, the king of the Europeans, is tired of it. And so he says, look at those black and brown people over there who've taken our land. We're the real Christians. We're the real this. Israel really belongs to us. Let's go and get them. Right? So that's what you come from too. Right? And you want to talk about cannibalism. Cannibalism was something that was accepted. Matter of fact, you know how in surgeries where people will like look down during the surgery and you'll have people that can look through a window or do whatever, right? They got that from people used to actually sit there during surgeries eating over the people that were having surgery done to them in Europe. That's part of the story too. So don't do this weird thing where a few tribes that you're gonna find do some stuff as far as cannibalism, but you're not gonna talk about cannibalism that happened over there, or how you were talking about people were at war here, but act like you weren't in war over there. Right now, I'm trying to go to a place to where, look, if people are killing each other, we should stop it. Period. And I think that's what you're missing. If people are killing each other, you should stop what they're doing. Period. Right. Right. We should stop killing people. Period. However, matter of fact, can we go a little deeper? You know that you can go over to Europe right now in certain countries and get candy called N-word toes, called nigger toes. You know that, right? It's chocolate in the shape of black people's toes. Why do you think that you can get that? You know where that started? That started when they started actually eating African people's toes. There's another type of candy you can get called N-word heads, nigger heads. It started when they started eating the heads of people. You can go today and get those chocolate treats right now. Yeah, I hear you talk about, right? Like it started there. But for some reason you go, oh, well, you guys did it as if all people did it. You think Cherokee people were out here eating people like that? Do you think Choctaw people? You think Seminoles? Like, no. You think the Wampanoag were? You think the Haudenosaunee were? And even when you say Aztecs, you got to be careful, because Aztecs was the conquistadors, right, which were European people from Spain, right? The conquistadors came over and started writing all type of wild stories. So we're not 100% sure how much truth is in it. But even if you want to say it's 100% true, remember, Aztecs were many different tribes that came together. Montezuma got to be the top person in this one tribe, but Montezuma did not speak for every single Aztec and every single Aztec tribe. So even when we do this, like you gotta treat people as what they are. That's why we need to learn, and we need to ask ourselves: are we learning who people actually are? You said you're right. You never understood why Africans from Africa aren't teaching history. Well, they teach history, right? And some of them come over. As a matter of fact, I'm Shwe. So I'm teaching my people's story as well. I'm a Jeligliot. That means that I'm assigned to make sure that I give historical evidence for our people over and over again to our people. And if anybody else wants to listen as well, I've been assigned to do so by my people, right? But I'm just saying, we're listening to somebody else who's so busy trying to say it's okay to deny your humanity, that when you speak on these things, of course they're going to come at you like that. That's what Thanksgiving has become. Once again, Thanksgiving was written in as a United States holiday by Abraham Lincoln. Go to Canada. You think they're doing Thanksgiving in Canada like that today? Some are, because they got mixed in a little bit. But you think they really care about Thanksgiving in Canada? You got to ask yourself, like, you think this is a real thing? You forget the Canadians, they were part of you forget that the colonies weren't just 13 colonies. You only focus on 13 colonies. The war was supposed to happen with like maybe up to 17 colonies stretching all the way into Canada, right? What you call the Revolutionary War. But because the 13 colonies weren't going to help out the upper colonies, then when all these English colonies when England started to come over and said, we're tired of you guys. And remember, the people who you call the founding fathers, they actually tried to write to the king and say, hey, you know what? Our bad. We went too far. Please help us. They were going to be the ones that were going to be killed. They weren't going to kill off everybody in America. They were coming to kill off those problem starters. And when they realized that they weren't going to stop, when George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and all these people who y'all love, when they realized that they weren't going to be able to stop it, they said, oh, okay, you know what we need to do then? They said, you know what we need to do? We need to go ahead and do what? We need to go ahead and tell everybody we're the Americans now. Let's come together. They were afraid of losing their own lives. And since they wouldn't put their lives down for what they said they believed in, you know what they did? They put your lives down, the people who you think that you're part of. It's propaganda. And one of those town destroyers who's up on Mount Rushmore, and it's on Sioux land, who the Sioux have never accepted any payment for that land. So it's still Sioux land, but they won't give it to them. Same Mount Rushmore that was made by the German who came over and made what you call Stonewall Mountain. It has Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and Jefferson Davis, who bare minimum, if you don't want to talk about slave owners and stuff, bare minimum are traitors to your union. They took the same person, the union took the same person, said, we like what you're talking about there. Make something for us over here that makes us the same, look the same. But it's propaganda. We know what it is. It's not real. It's not real. Right? We talked about this, what was it, a couple nights ago, Tuesday night? We talked about this a couple nights ago, right? Like, what is great about America? And y'all don't like when somebody asks, but see, when you say something, then you should also be ready to get a retort, get a response. What's so great about Thanksgiving? Show me the greatness of Thanksgiving. What's so great about what's going to happen today when you guys eat way too much food and when you guys make sure that you watch these football games? What's going to be so great about it? Well, our family comes together, so you can't do that any other day. Show me the truth and honoring a lie. Show me the honor in saying that a lie is the truth. And how you doing, Sister Irene? You hear what I'm saying? Like, show me this evidence that what you're doing is so great. Hey, how you doing, Off Grid? Show me this evidence that what you're doing is so great. And if you don't know what's wrong with Thanksgiving, I guess you came into the room. We got this stuff recorded. I don't know if I'm gonna go all the way back to the beginning, right? But show me this stuff. Matter of fact, the wild thing is, y'all remember that they were trying to somehow put Thanksgiving and Christopher Columbus together. Y'all remember they were doing that? And everybody gets mad. That's one of the reasons why, because you make this a Republican versus Democrat thing. Time with family, okay. Well, hopefully you take time with your family more than just on Thanksgiving. That's the problem, really, is that you have your life set up to where you only live by what our masters tell us to live by, right? But we can see our family anytime. We can go by our own holy days. Oh no, I look handsome the way that I am. Appreciate it though. I don't need to go ahead and bow down to anybody's stuff. Now you have to get the haircut and all that stuff because you gotta make sure that you live up to what Master says. Master say you gotta have hair that looks like this, you do what Master says. Right? But he's not my master. Not no more. I said it's a national big playboy. How you doing, Sir Stephen? You said you eating and watching football today doesn't change the past. You don't give a F about what happened back then. Yeah, of course you wouldn't, because you don't care about anybody outside yourself. But for those who care about people outside of ourselves, right? Maybe we should look at things outside of ourselves. Like I said, I'm not here to try to convince you. I could care less if you want to continue to do something based off of a lie and you want to continue to eat and stuff and say that you being part of something that's passing down the rhetoric that it's okay to eat over those that you have killed and eat, literally cannibalize those that you have killed, because that's where this stuff is coming from. You don't want to talk about that because they ain't had no turkey when they had that meeting. What does the turkey represent? Somebody said that earlier. They had no turkey. So if there was no turkey at the original meal, then what's the turkey represent? Y'all call people turkeys when you go ahead and basically say you can conquer them, or when you say they're stupid. You guys say turkeys are dumb animals, just like the savages that you call the people. Where does that come from? You don't care about that, though, because you don't care about anybody outside of yourself, and that's fine. You don't have to. This is for those who actually care enough to be able to see who care enough to say to themselves accountability. See, accountability starts off with something that's simple. And people don't want to talk about accountability, but let's be honest about accountability. How you doing, Marcy? Right? Let's deal with accountability. You ready? Accountability starts off like this. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Hey, how you doing, Minister Tamara? This is how accountability starts off. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why did I do what I did? My father got that into me when I was a young boy. He would always say, hey, son, why were you doing that? Why did you do that? What were you thinking? Accountability starts with, why did I do it? Why is it being done? Why are there consequences? right? Period. You said, so what would Christ do if he was here, render Caesar's things to Caesar? Yeah, but he would give Elohim what's Elohim's. Caesar's not important, more important than Elohim. Don't get that twisted. Don't put Caesar and Elohim, or who you call God or whatever. Don't put Elohim and Caesar in the same position. If the things of Elohim are more important than the things of Caesar, we give him what's his first. And when we give his things, this is the way that God, this is the way law works, anyways, by the way. See, this is the way law works. Let me work in reverse, right? So there's something called public and private law, right? Which comes from substantive law. It has to have substance, right? Is it law of equity? Is it law of equity, common law, admiralty law, right? Maybe even known as maritime law, right? But there's public and private law. So are you part of this system or are you private from the system? The system still has to protect the private though. But are you public or private? And you have substance to your law, substantive law. Above that is natural law. That's why you can't patent anything that the Most High made. If the Most High made it, you can't patent it. Why? You have to chemicalize it or change it or modify it so that it would be legal for you to be able to take some kind of ownership, because you can't take ownership over what's natural, because nature of natural things are not yours. Why? Because above natural law is universal law. What does the word universe mean? Universe means uni, a verse, spoken sentence. So universe is literally a single spoken sentence. And then above that is marital. Well, I would say marital law. Some people don't want to go there, so we say kingdom law. So you got kingdom law, universal law, natural law, substantive law. Then we get into the public and private. Right. So as a private citizen or somebody who's separated from the system, be in the world, but not of it, I can decide at any time to be able to come out of it. And so once again, I'm not concerned about trying to save a wicked, fictitious system. Even the United States is a corporation. 28 USC 3000215A by law tells you that it is a fictitious corporation. Even Washington, D.C. is not even considered to be a territory anymore, because Virginia technically took back the land, but D.C. is still in those places that Maryland, Virginia gave up. But so it's fictitious. It's not even really a territory by law. Look up Black's Law Dictionary. It's still not even a territory. And that territory, Washington, D.C., the capital is supposed to be, and the capital of the fictitious organization, rather, of the United States corporation, is supposed to be in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. there itself is not even a real territory. The United States corporation, not even a real country. And Congress can only have power in this fictitious place. And by law, constitutional law, it says that the United States, I'm sorry, that Washington, D.C. is subject to Congress. You're still living off of a fallacy. So even if I was to do that, why would I render to a fictitious government anything that's not due to it before I were to give an excellent and real Elohim what's due to him? You're talking about something completely different. I don't need to apply for a teacher position. I already teach. We have our own university. But I get what you're saying. I appreciate the compliment. And thanks for being part of the community. Was it Spiritual Consciousness and Brian, Chucky Matthews? But we're having this wild conversation that we're not even being honest about it. Your family about 2 years ago. Okay, praise y'all. You said ye were all slaves, but you can get promoted to be a higher paid slave by not caring about, I guess you're saying Yahweh or Yahuna, yeah. Yeah. So we're going off of this stuff where it's preconditioned. You've been conditioned your whole life to believe in these things. And here's some key words that you'll hear people say. You'll hear people say stuff like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. It only matters what we intended. But there's an old saying, right? That the road to hell is paved, right, with righteous or good intentions. There's a lot of people who died because of intentions. If you want to go by what guys call the Holocaust, as if there's no other Holocaust, but if you want to go by that, how many people do you think died based off of good intentions? There were some people that actually bought into what Hitler was saying. There's people that bought into what Stalin was saying. There's people that bought into what Idi Amin was saying. There's people that bought into what Washington was saying. You said, how do you change it? What do you do to change? Well, once again, we talk about that all the time. The whole thing of saying that we're not doing anything, just look up our website and try to figure out how you can help us worldwide, including even if you want to get your business listed so that we can make sure people are helping you with your business so that you can get away from a 9 to 5. We have tons of things that we do around the world. But if you're talking about just what is this doing, if that's what the question is, like you're talking, but you ain't doing nothing. Well, if you don't want to check what we actually do and how we travel and how we go different places and how we connect with people and send finances to help people and things like that, I mean, that's an assumption somebody's making this because we're talking. But if you're talking about how do we change it, well, first and foremost, we got to admit that it needs to be changed. Right. And how you doing, Justin? He said they strive in separation, so we're not strong enough to take over. Well, yeah, because we separated. So first of all, we have to admit things need to be changed. Has being in this system helped you? Right? Like, watch this. Let's do it like this. What does Thanksgiving do to promote your people in righteousness? Let's start there. Let's start there. Like, what does Thanksgiving do to promote your people in righteousness? What does it do to help your people as far as them loving themselves? What does it do to make sure that people actually are coming together? Because you keep talking about all this stuff coming together, but you keep saying your family comes together for the first time out of all year long. Some of y'all don't even talk to each other all year. Christmas, a lot of times, y'all don't come to each other either. So y'all come together to eat and then not see each other for the rest of the year. Thanksgiving ain't even really bringing you together. Thanksgiving gives you the mindset that it's okay for y'all to not come together, except once in a while. Like, show me what Thanksgiving is doing to help you in your everyday life. Right? It's a fictitious holy day. Just like Lupercalia is why you guys do the worship of the wolf and the sexual stuff that goes around. That's why you guys have Carnival and Fat Tuesday and all that before you go through your 40 days of what you start saying starts on Ash Wednesday and all that, because y'all guys were into a whole bunch of stuff sexually, where you used to do what the wolves did, supposedly to be able to have these babies and these litters of babies, because you think of yourself as animalistic. Or just like with Ishtar is where you get Easter from. The woman who said she was a goddess that came from the moon in an egg, and said that her son Nimrod was now the sun, and you had Tammuz come out of that, and that's supposed to be the children of that same thing, which is why a lot of your religions have mother, father gods, right? Or just like when you're talking about when you're dealing with what? When you're dealing with George Washington's birthday. George Washington's birthday, George Washington was somebody who was the Virginia slave owner, right? You know, you guys celebrate this stuff all the time. I forget what it's called. There's the second biggest coming together after the Olympics for people in the world. I forget what it's called, but there's something where they literally like worship a bull that comes out, and y'all don't. A lot of people are not even aware of it, but it's the second biggest gathering in the world every year, or every 4 years. I don't know how often they do it. Maybe it's every 4 years, whatever. And people don't want to talk about this stuff. Like, but you're doing holy day stuff all the time and don't even realize what it's from. Hallows Eve, Halloween, right? Hallowed be thy name, Halloween. What do you think that means? Hallow, you think that hallow is it's empty. Hollow is talking about they're trying to make it holy. And it's talking about a second deity now. You had the good deity that was around, and now all of a sudden you have the bad deity that's around. And so that's why you say good morning, God morning. Good and God are the same word. Good speed, Godspeed, guten Tag, right? God be with ye is why you say goodbye. That's what goodbye literally means. God be with ye. You're saying that you're hoping that this righteous God is out there to protect you, or that hopefully you can get inside. That's why y'all go inside for Christmas during Saturnalia or during winter solstice, because Odin, that's the reason why Santa Claus flies. Odin would fly around and try to murk people. So everybody was like, get inside real quick before he tries to murk, and bring a tree inside, because the tree's supposed to represent life. But then when the tree starts to wilt and to die off, what do? Rest the tree outside. That's why y'all still have a problem with people keeping trees in their house past a couple of days, past Christmas, or we're going into New Year's. Y'all start freaking out on people because it's the same mindset. You don't know, but you keep saying that this mindset doesn't affect you. That's why you still kiss under the mistletoe. Why do you kiss under the mistletoe? Because under the mistletoe, you're supposed to have sex. Supposed to have babies. Thanksgiving is just a continued alteration of people's, story. All right, St. Patrick, we can talk about St. Patrick too. St. Patrick, why is he even a saint? Number one, why are saints even voted in? Any saint you're talking about, even Santa Claus or Saint Nicholas, Santa Claus, even all these people, you're still dealing with what? You're dealing with fictitious rhetoric, right? So God can be whatever you want. Elohim is different than God. That's why people don't like it when we talk about God. And if somebody will say, well, what do you think about God? You talk about God so much in the Bible. In the original Bible, there was no God because the word God is not something that would have been in there. You're not supposed to have any false Elohim. God is a false Elohim by definition. Yeah, Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 1 through 5. It doesn't just say just don't decorate the tree. It says don't be like the pagans. Don't be afraid of the changing of seasons. Don't go out into the woods. Don't chop down a tree. Don't drag the tree into your house. Don't nail it so it stays straight up. Don't paint it silver and gold. It says all those things. That's winter solstice. But because you added more to Christ, you call it Christos Mas, right? You added more to Christ. That's what you did, right? It's not mass. It's Christos Mas. Christmas, right? You added to Christ, and you've added so much to him that you don't realize what you did. He doesn't even look the same, literally and figuratively and spiritually, right? Right? He doesn't even look what he's supposed to. He doesn't sound like what he's supposed to sound like. Right? So days people get upset, people get frustrated when we call out some of the, this weird thing. Oh, well, the Bible speaks against itself and this and that and all this stuff or whatever. Some people say that, but you don't talk about that holy day, right? That holy day is worship. How you doing, P. Cooper? Right? That holy day is worship. Why are you okay with worshiping things that aren't even how they're supposed to be worshipped? Once again, Thanksgiving in European, mindset is supposed to be a day of fast. Your God and about your Christian value. Why would you fast? Why aren't you fasting today? You got to ask yourself that. Why aren't you fasting today? Why are you gonna have as much pork as you can today? Why are you gonna say that you don't like gluttony, but you're gonna make sure to wear your sweatpants and make sure that you have your belt, with extra loops or extra holes in it today? Well, birthdays, born days, I haven't really found any scripture that's against or for it. In all honesty, it talks about people's born days, but worshiping your born days in certain specific manners to give honor, to you more so than honor to Elohim, I think is something we have to worry about. But you know, said knew they would talk this year when you set yourself apart. No one can come to families today. Hmm. Mm-hmm. And you got to recognize, like, so we're having this talk, we're having this conversation that's incomplete and it's illegitimate. We're trying to birth something. We should see, look, every word that you speak, everything that you do, every word that's spoken, it should be something that you're birthing into society, into the arats, the earth, right? This earth realm, everything that you speak is birthing something. We're so even we talk about birthday or born day, like what are you birthing with your own words? And to act and to have people literally just say, I don't care what this holy day means, I'm gonna do it anyways. You are birthing confusion, you are birthing a lie, and you are birthing contempt. Because now what happens is, see, this is the way the world works, right? This is the way that the world works. You ready for this? Now what happens is what? You start going into this context, into this mindset that I can hold you in contempt. Psalm 123, verse 4. Remember, we talked about that, that people attack our souls and are at ease being scornful to us, right? That's Psalm 123, verse 4, right? So people become at ease with scorning you. Why? Because you don't do what we say you should do. Now, I am not, once again, I've made it a point to say, I don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. You said you're gonna still eat that turkey, but eat the turkey as much as you want. Once again, like I said, I'm not here trying to tell you have a heaven and hell to put anybody in. I'm just trying to tell you maybe you should actually care about the things that you're part of. Right? Like if my name gets attached to something, I want to make sure that before I tell somebody you can use my name, that it's something that I deem righteousness. You know, yeah, a lot of these holy days don't. First of all, they don't even make sense. Once again, you celebrate even when you didn't know what Ishtar was. It was always weird to be like, why is there a bunny and why are there eggs? Like I remember as a child, always stuck out. Like, why are there bunnies? Why are there eggs? Eggs don't come from bunnies. Even when I didn't even recognize, like for a while as a child, I was trying to make eggs come out of bunnies, but I was like, I've never seen a bunny deliver an egg. Right? And even in what's going on in the comment section, like, see, fine, if a mistake was made or whatever, like hang in there with us, right? But we're so busy arguing even about that, right? Like stay focused, let's stay committed. All of us, let's stay committed. Like we're in this weird place. Yeah, we celebrate Passover, Passover, of course, right? Communion is something that was made up. You've never seen in the Bible where it says have a gold goblet and have everybody come up and drink out of it. And you've never seen anywhere in your Bible where it says make sure that you have these wafers. And you've never seen where it says have these little plastic cups. Plastic, by the way, is something we shouldn't be drinking out of anyway. So we got whole holidays now that we're so busy making sure that capitalistic or capitalism, we make sure we're effective to save some money, but we killing folks. Like we don't even think about that when we serve a meal. And people don't even use a communion meal or Passover meal. But every time you're supposed to have Passover or communion, if you want to do communion once a month, fine. You should have the whole meal. And you don't even know how the meal works. I'm sorry, you said, so your question was, how can you take accountability for what you didn't do? Who asked you to? I can see why you probably got muted. That's kind of that's kind of a thing. But I'm not worried about it. I don't want you to be muted. I want you to have a conversation. Ask yourself, did I ask you to take accountability for anything you didn't do? No. Did I ask you to take accountability? That's the question. Did I ask you to take accountability for anything you didn't do? The answer is no. But if you're going to eat a meal that is dealing with literally talking about the killing off of a people and making it propaganda, then maybe you should take accountability once you know what it is. For if I'm going to do it, okay, no problem. Like you can do whatever you want. Just admit, like, yeah, I'm part of this thing that I know is made up and that I don't think it matters. If you don't think it matters, then that's fine. Right? But you saying like take accountability, like nobody said take accountability for killing natives. But if you're going to eat at a table to where you are consistently saying that where the propaganda was made to go ahead and take your mind off of the killing of the natives and say that no, we're all friends now, well then admit to that. But I'm not holding you accountable for making Thanksgiving the propaganda. You weren't there. Nobody asked you to do that. So you have to ask yourself when we get to that position, once again, you got to start asking yourself questions like, why is it that I feel so offended by it? If you feel offended by it, then more than likely it's because there's some kind of attachment there that you probably shouldn't have. But I didn't say you, Justin, are going to go to hell because you killed off natives. I don't have a heaven and hell to put you in. Well, you say you're trying to get clarification. I hope I'm clarifying. Like nobody has said you are responsible for Thanksgiving being messed up. Nobody said that to you at all. So nobody, I promise you, nobody said that to you. I'm not here to make people have guilt or whatever. If anybody has guilt, I say this all the time, if the shoe fits squared, if it doesn't, take it off, right? It's either ouch or amen. That's what they used to say back for those who were in Cirque or church and all that stuff. Like, I'm not here to try and make you feel like a terrible person. I'm just here to provide something that maybe you've never thought of before. That's it. And if you decide one ear out the other, take the meat, spit out the bones, I'm still going to do it no matter what, you do you. Because in all honesty, we have hundreds of thousands of people that I'm talking to every day. I don't have the will or the power to go around to each person to be like, yo, are you doing it? Are you not doing it? Like if what we're trying to give you is a cultural context, right? And once again, just starting off, because we just talked about this in our Truth About series anyway. So we talked about the truth about Thanksgiving. If you want to go kind of even deeper into a lot of the other things that are involved with it, but straight up, even just from a mindset of propaganda, right? Like, and a lot of people don't get this format to where they get to ask questions. So we love questions. We just like humanity to be kept and all those things. You said in Jamaica, this day isn't celebrated. It's mostly acknowledged in the USA. Well, we talked about that earlier, right? You're not going to find it celebrated in Canada or in Mexico. A tiny, tiny bit, but not really. You're not going to find people celebrating this, obviously, in England and other places as well. But this supposedly is supposed to be a day where everybody gives thanks to the Most High for what, He's allowed them to do. But you got to ask yourself, all the stuff that they're telling you about the table you're going to lay out, the turkey you're going to have. Remember, they didn't even have turkey when they had the first meal, y'all. So what does the turkey represent? Like, you got to start asking yourself these questions. You said that's your thing, is trying to find out the truth and where the lines are. Yeah. And that should be everybody's thing. Yeah, like that. You're not going to find these things celebrated because it's not really like, and even it's difficult to go into this somewhat because we don't know where what this stuff is. Like the whole thing is based off of a lie. Once again, it's all propaganda. If you grew up like I did, I don't even know what you called the thing. What was that cone shaped thing that they had? And they had all the fruit and stuff inside it. And you had the turkey down there, and you had the pilgrims, and you had very, very light-skinned natives, and everybody was so happy and smiling and producing stuff. And like, that's not what the setup was at all. They were coming to write out a treaty because they knew that these people coming over were the kin of slave owners who had been enslaving their people for generations already. They didn't trust them. They didn't trust them because Squanto, like I said earlier, was already a slave. And before Squanto came and started speaking English to them, there was another guy who spoke English to them, meaning that he had been a slave as well and came back over. Right. So all these people that are coming up, and we forget even before that, look at what was already happening in Florida, and look what was happening over in Hispaniola, and look what was already happening. They knew the difference. As much as people don't want to admit this, there were already people of color, whether we're going to call them black or otherwise, that were coming over already. And they were not enslaving people. They were trading and making sure that stuff was there. They were even marrying into these tribes before Columbus even came over. In Brazil, they were already speaking West African languages. Right? So when you get over to the 1600s, which is where y'all want to act like all this stuff started, if we're not careful, right? What we've been taught, by the time you get to the 1600s, people who didn't look African, right, were not trusted. I know y'all don't want to hear that. I'm not trying to say this is something like black people are bad. No, I'm trying to show you real talk. Like, people who didn't look African were not trusted because Africans actually did business fine for centuries. There was no sickness that was coming over any of that. And then here came people who didn't look like them, and they were enslaving people and using chemical warfare, and outright their sicknesses were taking out whole tribes. They did not trust them. So to act like this Thanksgiving dinner was something that, just these two people magically came together and had fun, and then somehow, somewhere there was a miscommunication that caused them to have to kill off the natives, that's not true. You said, am I taking guests, let you in? What do you want to talk about? Honest with me. On to argue, whatever, I don't even mind that. Just be honest with me. All right. And then once you come on, we can go ahead and keep you on. Right. But we have to be honest with this. Right? Like, we're having a dishonest conversation. You said, I'm not getting any turkey with that attitude. Yeah, I don't want any. I'm not a turkey anyways. You are what you eat. But there's this wild stuff. Right? And it's weird. I was gonna let you on. All you had to do was like actually be nice, and you decided not to be as strange. You could have come on. But all these different things that are there, right? Like you have to recognize what's going on. And we're not aware of what's going on. We're not aware that this whole thing is messed up. We're not aware that all these things we've been getting are messed up. Every single last one of them. And you think that They are lying to you about everything, but all of a sudden Thanksgiving is where they decided we're going to tell you the truth. That's a wild place to be mentally. They lied to you about everything, but today, that'll be the day that they're going to tell you the truth. And those that are listening to the podcast, we're doing a recording. So those who are listening to the podcast, we're going to go ahead and let you guys go. Feel free to watch the rest of this on YouTube or on Facebook. And we appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you so much. Shalom to you. Right. So we have this weird situation that we have where we keep thinking, like, you think today is the day. Today is the day. Right. Well, yeah, they used to teach people that Columbus landed in America. Right. But for whatever reason, out of all this stuff that's been messed up and been mishandled, misrepresented, misinterpreted, and purposefully so, you think that today Thanksgiving is the day. All right, be safe at work and be safe out there in general, right? And by the way, those of y'all, if you do your side hustles and stuff like that, I would suggest that you go out today and make your money. When I was out there doing the side hustle and stuff, like doing food and stuff like that, or even delivering other things, or like today is the day that you make some money. You get that extra little bonus and stuff. Make sure that you get out there and get your little bonus if you can today. I'm sorry, you said you'd be honest. You're in a house that's divided, however they let you give your true spill. Hey, I mean, it's cool. A lot of us are in houses that are divided. Right? Doesn't mean that things won't change, though. So continue to do what you do. What does it say? The non-believing spouse, it's the actions of the believing spouse that will actually be able to say or help to save or help to redevelop, if you will, the non-believing spouse. So just hang in there. Let's hang in there. You got this. But yeah, we got this odd situation that goes on where we act like we have no mindset, no will, no way of changing this, and people even do that whole thing too, It's never going to change. Why won't it? It's never going to change. You see the way things are? Yeah, I see the way things are. That means you need to come out of it. It's not going to change inside the system. Stop trying to change the system. Once again, the system is doing exactly what it is supposed to do, right? The system is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So I'm not worried about the system being out of order because the system is supposed to be out of order. And really, if we want to keep it 100, system sometimes has a lot more order than we do, right? System is regimented. The system has it set up. We ain't letting such and such up in here. Don't talk about H2N up in here, right? Kyrie, you better bow down up in here. Kanye, you better listen up in here. Michael Jackson, you don't get to say that K word up in here, but meanwhile, we'll go ahead and put that N word all over the place. They're very structured. They don't allow nonsense. We allow the nonsense. We allow people to say and do and act however they want. And even use it. Have you ever thought about how like can we even do this? Can we even do this? Can we do this real quick? Y'all ready? How many of y'all have fights about Thanksgiving more so than you have like pleasant Thanksgivings? And when I say fights about Thanksgiving, I'm talking about stuff like you'll be sitting there and it's like, oh well, so and so doesn't want to have Thanksgiving over my house. Well, why don't they want to come over my house this year? Why we always got to go over yours? Well, why you always get to make the mashed potatoes? Why you always get to make the macaroni and cheese? Well, I don't like this and that. Like Thanksgiving is more a headache for a lot of people than it is, righteousness. Everybody want to act like Thanksgiving is just this place where all y'all are is at peace and everything, right? Like, and none of that stuff should matter. You ready for this? Because you should be living together, Israel. Those grafted in, come together. If you live together, then you wouldn't worry about this stuff. If you talk to each other all the time, you wouldn't worry about this stuff. If you called each other more than once a century, then you wouldn't worry about these things. But you got beef because this is supposed to be the day, as if there's no other day that the Lord has made to rejoice and be glad in. Today is supposed to be the day that we're going to go ahead and finally start communicating as a family. No, it's not. You're supposed to have been doing this. You're supposed to do this all the time. Why do you think that righteousness has to fall just today? Why do you believe that? Why is that your mindset? That today is the only day that y'all can get together. And you start making every excuse to be able to worship something that's fallible. Oh, wow. Thank you very much, Jermaine. Appreciate you. Right? Why are we doing that with each other? Why are we so big into it's got to be today? It's got to be, if no other day, it's got to be today. It's because we're not even together. That's why we try to make sure we're on every day. At least bare minimum is a virtual being together. And this is the day where they're gonna give you a bunch of stuff that's gonna like cause all types of stuff. Like people are gonna be taking insulin shots today. people are gonna be taking pills. People are gonna go to the hospital, right? What you say? A couple days out of 365 doesn't show any commitment. Exactly, right? Like watch this. If you had a job and you were on time for your job 2 days this whole year, if you were an hour late every day for a year, except for 2 days, you think that they're gonna keep you around? Come on, somebody. Right? Yeah, relationships take time and effort. Throwing a few days out of a year is something that you love is unacceptable, right? We should ask ourselves, like my wife is saying, we should ask ourselves, like, why is it that it's okay for me to not do this? Even on Thanksgiving, we get upset with each other because we don't even do stuff on time. So people be walking around mumbling to each other, like, man, when are we gonna start eating and this and that? Because you're foodies, you are addicted. But we don't have a culture to where we say that every day we should be together. Right? Every day we should be together. You said, but look at it this way. For some people, it's one of the only times they have off. Once again, because you set that up. Watch this. If you know the holy days and you literally go ahead and go to your job and say, okay, this year I need these days off or whatever. All right. Sometimes you might have to give them 2 weeks notice, or sometimes you might, they can only look out like a few months out or whatever. But if you knew what days were and you went to them early and said, I need these days off, or I want this time off or this and that, you could pick and choose when you could be with your families. You see what I'm saying? The only reason why we're doing this, we're making the assumption that we have to bow down to the system. That's why it's not like we can't come out of the system. We think like the system too much. What you say? You said if you saw your husband only on holy days. Oh yeah, she saw me only on holy days. It wouldn't be much of a relationship, right? You know. And some of us really don't see each other except holy days, kind of, sort of, because in your relationships, you're so busy doing everything else. Both of y'all got so many jobs and so many different things to do, and you don't even work together in your own businesses, right? So basically, like your holy days situation shows up. But for a lot of us, why couldn't we just say, hey, we'll set this thing up to be on our terms? There are enough people that agree with how you agree with. There's enough people, believe it or not, that live where you live. There's enough people who are willing to travel to where you're willing to travel to. There's enough people willing to support your business like you'll support theirs. Like the time is up for us to just be like, oh yeah, we can't make it any better. Like for a lot of us, that's just all there is. It's just never going to change. But why? Why won't it? Come out of her. That's simple. Come out of her. It's a choice. Right? And for every choice, there's an invoice. There's a payment that comes with coming out of her. Just like there's a payment that comes with staying in here. The payment is you got to pay up and say, well, I don't have no time. So when you tell me I have time to visit my family, I'll do so. Yes, sir. And I'm not trying to say you shucking and jiving per se, but I'm saying like we get forced to be situations. The way you said is death. We pay as a payment for it. To get back to our natural culture, because we are never supposed to be. Yeah, and exactly, Shima, and that's going exactly with what what Elder, and we have to be honest about it. Yeah, say who you will serve. Have you decided? I'm sorry, what you said? People make time for what is important to them, right? Right. People make time, right? That song Jonathan McReynolds, "Make Room," right? Where he talks about make room. You're more important than Instagram. You're more important than Facebook. You're more important than that. Like make room in your life. Right? Make room in your life. What's more important to you? People don't want to say it like that, but let's just keep it 100. Let's just say it like that. What is more important to you? Sabbath is a day of rest from worship? No, we worship on the Sabbath for sure. You don't ever stop worshiping. You should worship 100% of the day. Sabbath is a day right? But Sabbath is the day you rest inside of that which is what has been created, so to speak, right? And even that's a whole. I'm talking about Thanksgiving, so I don't want to get too deep into Shabbat. We've talked about Shabbat, and even we have that on our series on YouTube. Haven't been led as we believe. If you want to look at that playlist, you can. But we have to be honest about these things. They see fitting into this crazy world easier than abiding by Yah. Yeah, and by the way, it takes more effort to be against the Most High than it does to be with the Most High. And we don't like to talk about that. Dr. Leah Africa talks about, he says it this way. He says it actually takes more effort to be stupid than it does. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to call people stupid. I'm just saying this is what he says. I'm quoting him. He says that it takes more effort to be stupid than it is to be smart. And may I be honest with you, being part of a system that keeps lying to you, it takes a lot of effort to keep fighting. That's why people have to fight. They got to fight because it takes energy. You gotta you gotta be in position. You gotta be worked out to keep throwing. You can't just be throwing jabs. These people that come on with the comments and stuff the way that they do, you can't just be throwing jabs and not being in shape. You gotta be ready. They really think employers are going to give you all those feast holidays off. They look at you crazy. Why? They didn't look at me crazy. I asked to work for their holidays and I asked off for mine. And all I had to do, if they said, well, you got to get a replacement sometimes, and I just asked somebody, can you take my shift? Not hard at all. Right? But in your mind, you already have decided that you defeated. But why is it hard? Why is it hard to say to somebody, I want this day off? People do it all the time. I'm sorry, y'all. I got a doctor's appointment. I got to take it. The only day I can get is 2 days out. Okay, cool. Can somebody switch with so-and-so on this day? Okay, cool. No problem. Boom. We do it all the time. I'm not asking you to take their holidays off. I'm saying take yours off. You said I haven't tried? Okay. I never did that before. All right. That sounds like somebody who, somebody just gave up. But, I've done it before. Right? Like I went places where I worked at restaurants, different things, and they told me, oh, if you're gonna try and work here, you're gonna have to go ahead and cut all your hair off. I was like, well, no, it's my beliefs. They said, oh, okay, well, can you go ahead and just get us something written from the pastor? I was like, I am the pastor. Well, but if I had a pastor, I simply could have just went to somebody and had them write it up. I was prepared to have somebody else. If they said, well, you need somebody else to write it up, that's all you needed. And then all I had to do was wear a hairnet, and I didn't mind it. Right? I wore a hairnet to make sure that even though I was somebody who was really running stuff a lot more than actually, doing the stuff in the kitchen and everything, but still I wore a hairnet so that people would, feel more comfortable. No problem. Sometimes even wore a beard net. You said, so you do not cut it at all? No, I do not. I do not, I won't not, I shall not, I shan't not, I can't not, I cannot, all that. Right? It's a promise to the Most High. For me personally, I'm not saying that has to be everybody's promise. It's just my personal promise. So there are many people who are willing to give you your holy day in exchange for the pagan day. Most definitely. Yeah, there's and once again, it comes to this thing of coming out the way, coming out the world. Right? Like if you've decided the only way that you can do it is the way that the world tells you to do it, then yeah, of course you're not going to be able to do some of these things. But we make all types of effort for a lot of different things that are a lot less substantial than what we're talking about today, as far as keeping your culture and being committed. Right? Like, well, once again, like I said, with my hair, it's just a promise of the Most High from the tribe that I, am part of, and that I want to make sure I identify with and keep my culture and community and things. We don't cut our hair. But it's a promise that I made to the Most High. So unless it's some kind of health condition or something that starts happening where my hair falls out, I hate to even say that. I don't like to talk about that, but if it does or whatever outside of that, until the day that I die, it'll just be growing, right? So you said most businesses close completely, so it's not an option. Not most, some. When I finish here, I'm probably going to go somewhere and grab something to eat. Not most, some. Some of them close early on Thanksgiving, but not most, some. People are still going shopping. They're going to have a lot of grocery stores open till at least like 2, 3, sometimes 5, 6. And then they'll let people off and they can go ahead and leave. And so let's make it a point to celebrate something else. We can come out of this system together. Yeah. We've done that in the past, by the way. Even like I said, we might do something similar again this year. Last year, we before Christmas, I can't remember if it was the day before or the day after, but we did a celebration to make sure that people who might feel like they were, lonely and stuff like that, they can come together. We can make commitments to come together. Even doing this today, we're starting off the day together. Some of us aren't on. Some of us are probably, doing Thanksgiving, or maybe they're just tired and getting some rest or whatever. But, like I'm saying, we can change this. And at the end of the day, the goal is to keep getting this to where we get to a place where we're not in the land of our captivity, right? Where we have land that's our own. And so when we walk outside, we don't feel committed to, oh, everybody's doing this for Thanksgiving. Oh, everything I'm watching today is going to be this. Oh, wow, I see Christmas stuff already lit up. Oh, wow, Halloween is here, 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 here. Like the goal is to get to a place where we don't have to worry about those things anyways. You said all holidays are consumer based. I mean, I guess, you know, I guess, yeah. I guess we could say that, you know, like it doesn't really take much to do the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Matter of fact, you'd save yourself some money, but I guess to each their own. But even in that, commercial is. I'm not worried about something being commercialized per se, because capital is something that's necessary to do just about anything. Even if it wasn't money, you need to put effort in something. I'm sorry, what'd you say, babe? You said we can put something in place so people don't feel like they're losing something. Yeah, we can look at it that way, for sure. We have to definitely make sure that we're trying our best not to kind of be junior versions of whatever. It's kind of like when people do Harvest Day instead of Halloween. Well, Harvest Day is exactly the same thing as Halloween. So we're literally doing the same thing, but just trying to say we're doing it, sprinkling some Jesus on it, right? But I do believe that, yeah, we should have more of those. But once again, those who want to celebrate holy days, let's be honest, we have holy days already. But we can add on some stuff, no problem. I agree with my wife. I'm just saying, I want y'all to see we already have holy days, y'all. Like we already have holy days, right, that we could be doing several times a year instead of the other ones that we do several times a year. For example, and by the way, I don't find anything wrong with some of the stuff. Like I don't find anything wrong with Veterans Day. I don't find anything wrong with Memorial Day, even though I'm somebody who's not part of the system anymore. To celebrate somebody who's willing to put their life on the line for you, that's definitely something that I could appreciate. So I'm not saying every single thing that exists and every single day that exists, we should go ahead and throw it in the trash. I'm just saying some of this stuff is trash. It was evil to begin with, and it's still evil today. What about Second Chronicles 7:14? Is that going to be one of the abortion scriptures or something like that? I can't remember off the top of my head. People give us that one all the time. I'm sorry. It's one of those that pops up quite a bit. Forgive me. I can't remember off the top of my head, but let's go ahead. Or it's one of those things where the law says you can kill, or slavery or something. I can't remember. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I don't know why I was doing Chronicles together. You know what I did? I think I put Chronicles with. Forgive me. I don't know what my mind just did. Sorry about that. I was thinking about something else. I don't know what. Forgive me. I don't know what that was. Forgive me, please. Whoever that was, forgive me. I'm sorry. I literally just realized I was talking about the wrong book. Anyway, what did you say? Second Chronicles 7:14. Oh, okay. Sorry. If my people who were called by my name, sorry about that, by the way. Whoever that was, I apologize. I didn't even catch your name, but sorry about that. I really am. If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from Shamayim or heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Sorry about that. Once again, I don't know what my mind did there. uh, wow, I don't know what I did there. Anyway, and those who are looking for the podcast is uploaded. So, when we're dealing with this stuff, we have to be honest. Like, and there's a lot of ifs that are in there, right? If my people. So number one, like who are the people? And you got to read before it too. If you read before it, you'll recognize that it's saying that there's no rain. Why is there no rain? Because of disobedience. So when you disobey the Most High, the manna from heaven doesn't rain down, right? So there's a lot of things in there. So a lot of people will go, well, we're all Yah's people. No, if my people, well, we all believe in the name of Jesus, right? If my people who are called by my name, which ain't Jesus, right? But you got to keep on going. Well, then people say, what? Well, I'm somebody who I'm just coming to do this just to eat. If my people were called by my name will humble themselves and pray. Thanksgiving, even in the original Eurocentric mindset, used to be what? A time you came together and fasted and prayed, right? And seek my face. I'm looking for something. I'm looking for the unknowable. I'm looking for the unsearchable. I'm looking for the things that aren't in heaven. His face is not in all these different things. So we're looking for what? Seek his face. And by people who are called by my name will humble themselves and what? And seek his face and turn from their wicked ways. Well, you know what? I know this is wrong and blah, blah, but hey, it's time we get together in my family and I don't have any time, but turn from your wicked ways. And it was a new moon last night. Yeah, sorry, I missed that. Yeah, and so turn from your wicked ways. Turn from your wicked ways. That's called repentance. Repentance is I was facing this way, and I said, you know what? I'm tired of going this way. I'm just going to do this. It doesn't even mean I believe everything yet. It just means at least I turned. Right? But then on top of that, it doesn't stop there, right? It says, and not only turn from the wicked ways, it says, then I will hear from heaven. And people keep talking about, you're going to come together. You're going to see a lot of people that are going to pray today. And you're going to have magnificent prayers. You're going to have prayers that are so amazing that it's going to bring the esoteric, the person into the esoteric and the existential, and the person who looks at the allegory, and the person that believes in Christianity and all that. And they're going to come together and say, man, that was so magnificent. You wrapped up all this great stuff. Thank you. We praise the Most High for you saying this today. Man, that was so wonderful. Even though I don't believe in God, I still believe in that prayer. No, by the energy, you're going to hear all this stuff happen today. Right? But the Most High not going to hear it. You said as far as Black people leaving America? Well, okay. First of all, Black people leaving America, before you leave America, you still need to turn from your wicked ways. But, I'm talking about Thanksgiving today, if you don't mind. But if you want, I can go ahead and focus in on that some more. But so you still got to what? Their prayers aren't even going to be heard. There's a scripture, Revelation, right? Talking to the 7 assemblies. And he says what? He says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. That means I'm not even inside. Y'all having y'all little Thanksgiving thing today, and I'm sitting up there, and you're saying that you're praying to me, and it's not. No problem. I'm just saying, give me a second, I'll come to it. That's why I started talking about what I was talking about, because I thought, that you were talking about the same thing we're talking about today. But no problem. We can go there in a second. And then it says, and then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin. So now I'll hear from heaven and forgive their sin. You got to realize that, see, watch this. People think sin is just something that has to be done on purpose. You think that sin is something that just has to be done on purpose. Y'all hear what I'm saying? You think that sin is just something that has to be done on purpose. Right? Sin means to miss the mark. If you're part of this stuff, you're sinning, whether you like it or not. Now, you can be sinning in ignorance, or you could be sinning, it could be an sin of omission or commission, as the church folk used to say, right? But you sinning, period. Missing the mark. So then he will hear from heaven and will forgive your sin. And then, watch this, now he will heal their land. Now we can get into this land piece, but before, let me just go ahead and read that again. So what does it say? If my people, got to be his people, who are called by his name, Adonai, right? Kofi, right? Yah, right? Um, Isaiah, right? All these words that are there, right? If our people who are called our name, even Amma, right? Amma, mother, right? If my people who are called by my name, my authority, I authorize them. If you're my people, then then you'll be invited by my name. Yehovah is even in your name, let alone you will know my name and you will speak it. Right? And then if you would humble yourselves, that means act like you don't know everything, right? In this context, and pray and seek his face and turn from your wicked ways, then he says, I'll hear you from heaven. And after I hear you from heaven, I'll forgive your sin. And now he will heal our land. Right? But once again, what land? You go to Ghana and it's still not your oil that you pumping, then what land is yours? If you go to Brazil, but you still don't own the house that you live in, you pay rent, what land is yours? I'm sorry, you said it's Hanukkah, an Israelite holy day. I thought it wasn't in the Bible. Yeah, Hanukkah's not really in the Bible. I'm still a little on the fence. Hanukkah's like a maybe-ish type thing, but anything that's a maybe-ish thing, I'm not really going to present as a 100% interpretation until I can gather it. But it's not necessarily a bad deal, but I'm trying to figure out if it's actually Avda at all, if it's true Israelite at all, or if it's something that's more so mixed in from somebody else. And it's, I'm not 100% sure what it is. Even the menorah, that's usually presented isn't even 100% correct the way that they present it. So, there's a lot of different things in there that are iffy about it. So it's a holy day that I don't really participate in. Just like, what's the one that they try to call the one for Esther? What's the one? We had somebody on here. She started her own YouTube channel and everything off of it because she got mad because I told her I didn't agree with it, and somebody muted her when she started kind of yelling at us. What's the? I don't. If I don't celebrate, I don't even be thinking about these names. Purim. Yeah, thank you, Minister Tammy. Yeah, Purim. Purim is not something that you're commanded to celebrate either. It's not in the Bible. But Jewish people who are converts, supposedly, right? It's more Talmudic, but they say you're supposed to celebrate it as a holy day. And they started celebrating already. And then when people questioned them about it, they said, oh, yeah, it's about what Esther did. But the reality is that Purim's not even really about Esther. So I don't mess with Purim but there's no commandment. Once again, people think we're just being like everything in the Bible. You just do it because the Bible says that. Well, yes, also though, we do it if it's a commandment, and it's not really a commandment that says that you should celebrate what Esther did. I'm not saying, so I could see if somebody wants to celebrate it. I wouldn't even say it's wrong to say I'm going to celebrate. But once again, you got to figure out Purim was something that wasn't about Esther in the first place. So if you want to celebrate what Esther did, why not just celebrate what Esther did? Why do you need to go ahead and do it through Purim, which is something somebody made up, and then try to add in and now try to tell you it was a holy day when it's really not? Like the Day of Atonement, that's a holy day. The convocation that comes in the 10 days of celebration, that's a holy day, right? Feast of Trumpets, that's a holy day, right? Feast of Tabernacles, that's a holy day. Feast of Unleavened Bread, that's a holy day. Making sure that we have 40 days to make sure we get the leaven out of our homes before we celebrate Passover. That's a holy day. Passover itself, a holy day. Did I say Feast of Unleavened Bread already? That's a holy day, right? Making sure that we keep up with what we now call Pentecost or Shabbat, right? That's a holy day. Those are holy days, right? But we're not really commanded in Scripture to do Hanukkah. We're not, which I'm still iffy on, and we're not really commanded in Scripture at all to do Purim. So we don't do it, right? So we're still keeping, we stay committed to what is in the Word. And I'm even talking about outside of just 66 books. You don't find Purim or Hanukkah in even the The other books, whether we talk about the Apocrypha or the Book of Jasher, the Chronicles of Noah, the Book of Enoch, etc. Right? Even those of you who read, I don't necessarily agree with the Book of Thomas being one, but even if you do the Book of Thomas, some of y'all try to do the Book of Judas and all this other stuff, like you still won't find them. And the Book of Judas, by the way, is a very interesting thing to me because why do y'all think Judas is allowed to write a book? And he would have wrote a book before he died, hung himself. It's a very interesting stuff. But once again, people get into there. Palm Sunday is something that, well, first of all, it wouldn't have been on a Sunday. It would have been, 2 days prior to, or I'm sorry, it would have been a week rather, excuse me, prior to when the Most High actually, So basically, whenever Passover is, go 1 week before that, and that's what you would have called Palm, whatever day that would have been, because Sunday was not a day that people were doing that yet, right? But or I'm sorry, not a week before he ate, excuse me, a week before he was killed, right? Which we do Passover, so you have to go, what, 2 days, Pat? No, hold on. Well, it depends on when you want to do. If you do want to do it 1 day or the second day after he was killed, whatever. But, Palm Sunday would have actually been like a week after he died, right? But basically, Palm, it's not really a Sunday. Sunday is because we're into the sun worship. Sunday, day of worshiping the sun. Monday, day of worshiping the moon. Tuesday, day of worshiping the god of war. Wednesday, a day of worshiping Odin. Thursday, a day of worshiping Thor. Friday, a day of worshiping Frida. Saturday, a day of worshiping Saturn. So we really didn't do that before. But when you talk about that day where they laid out the palms, we do the palms in that sometimes, or we do ask people to go out and buy palms sometimes. It's not a requirement, though. It's not a day that we have to have required to worship, but it's something that's tradition. And the reason why it's celebrating the fact that the king was coming. Now, they didn't realize that he was the king because he was going to bring us back, the Holy Spirit back, and allow us to have the door access back to Shamayim, or to heaven. But, for them, they thought he was going to basically take over Rome, but they knew who he was. Hosanna in the highest. They knew who he was. So yeah, it's very, there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's not really something that says that you have to do Palm Sunday. There's no commandment or mandate on us to make sure we have to do Palm Sunday. So it's more traditional, and it's something that I do from time to time, and that I don't mind my family partaking in, and our community even partaking in. It's just not something we're required to do, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Do we celebrate Passover? Of course. Like I just said, we most certainly do. Yeah, those days are cultural, right? You said Matthew chapter 7, verse 21 through 23. Okay, well, we're dealing with what? The Sermon on the Mount. But yes, I'm sorry, I kind of didn't, while I'm turning there real quick to finish up. So the land can be taken anywhere, right? We don't have to go back to physical Israel. The Bible never declares that Israel has to go back to the physical Israel at all. That's something more so that's a man-made thing that we've kind of invented. But we don't ever have to go back to the physical Israel. Wherever our feet trod is ours, but we need to come together, period. And we need to get separated from the system. If we had our liking, if we had our way, it would be 60 miles away from anything, right? If we had our way, that we would just have people that could go back and forth and get stuff. Why 60 miles? Because it was a 3 days journey. Because we're supposed to go back into the wilderness to make sure we're separated. Revelation chapter 12, wherever we go. Revelation 12, separate yourself, be 60 miles away. Why? Because that goes back to Exodus. He said before it was let my people go, period. It was let my people go to worship. They needed to go on a 3 days journey. A day's journey in the Bible is 20 miles. So they need to go 20 times 3, 60 miles away from anything, so they could actually have an atmosphere of being able to worship the Most High. That's why 2 Esther chapter 13, verses 40 through 45, those who were in the northern kingdoms, right, when Assyria came through, they never came back. They said, you know what, we're just going to leave. And we're going to go to a place that's not inhabited. We want to go at least 60 miles away from anything and anybody, right? But let's go to Matthew chapter 7, verse 21 through 23. It says, not everyone that saith unto me, Adon, Adon, or Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, we have not prophesied in thy name, right? And in thy name have cast out, and then that was it, in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works. And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you, depart from me, ye that work iniquity. So I don't know what the question is. I guess is the question trying to talk about that we shouldn't be so concerned about the law or his name, right? Because if that's the point, you have to be careful with that because you got to realize this is part of the Sermon on the Mount. Have you read? I'm gonna assume rather that you've read the whole Sermon on the Mount. I don't want to ask a question. Let me just assume that you have, because for you to ask a question like this or just to only use those verses and not use the whole Sermon on the Mount, I think would be kind of ridiculous, right? So before you read the Sermon on the Mount, you got to go back to Matthew chapter 4, verses 23 through Matthew chapter 5, verse 2. You will discover that Yahshua starts going around all of Galilee and he starts speaking about the kingdom. And then he starts healing folk, and then he starts going ahead and making sure that he can go ahead and, cast out demons and all these different things. But first things first, he goes and he starts preaching kingdom all over the place. So as he goes, he starts preaching kingdom, and it doesn't say just in Israel. If you read about it, it says that people from all over the place, African nations and everything, everybody are coming to follow Christ. And so he notices that they're all following him. So he goes to a high mountain, a high place, to literally, even physically, not just figuratively, physically, even a high place, to make sure he starts preaching to them. And he starts what's called the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew chapter 5, verse 3 to 12, he starts saying, well, blessed are the poor in spirit. So there's the kingdom of heaven. People have been told because they don't know as much, they're not as great. But he says, no, let me shift the paradigm. If you're poor in spirit, you still can have the kingdom belong to you, right? He says, blessed are those who mourn, for you shall be comforted. And you should be like, hey, we ain't going to just mourn with that man. They're going through whatever, they're lower than us. No, blessed are those that mourn. So we need to mourn with each other so we can all be comforted together, right? Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Even says in verses 10 through 12, basically, hey, when they revile you and say all manner of evil against you, right? Rejoice. That means keep jumping, leaping at that. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for they did the same thing to the prophets that came before us. Then verses 13 through 16, you are the salt of the earth. You're the light of the world. You're a city set on a hill. What sense does it make to take a light and then cover it up to where you smother it and the light or the oxygen can't get to the fire anymore, right? Then it goes on past that. Verses 17 through 20, right? What does verse 17 say? Verse 17 says that I have not come to destroy the law. I've come that it might be fulfilled. The word fulfilled actually means to be enacted. It does not mean to finish it. It means to be enacted, right? That's why you had to carry your cross like he had to carry his cross. Enacted. You got to enact things in your life too. Verse 18, he says we should not change the jot or the tittle. That means the most minuscule of measurements or even the yao, the handwriting in which it is written. Verse 19, he comes behind that and said those that say that they are the least, those who say you shouldn't follow the law and those that teach not to follow the law, you're considered to be the least in the kingdom. However, those that follow the law and teach others to follow the law, you are considered to be the greatest in the kingdom. Then it comes behind that in verse 20. And it says in verse 20, you should know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. Then Matthew chapter 5, we're still just in chapter 5, right? Before we get into all this and you're saying the law doesn't matter. Then we go to Matthew chapter 5, or I don't know if that's what you're saying, right? It just, some people use it that way. So let me not assume that's how you're using it. But Matthew chapter 5, verse 21 through 26, then it starts talking about, hey, don't have these anger issues and don't get into debt. Right? Verses 27 through like 32, something like that. It starts talking about marriage and how important that is, right? And making sure that we recognize that we shouldn't be committing adultery nor fornication. Then it starts, it's going through a lot of different things. You get into chapter 6, right? By the time we get into chapter 6, the rest of chapter 5 talks about like let your yea mean yea, your nay mean nay. Go to chapter 6. After chapter 6, you start talking about don't be like the hypocrites. Hypocrites literally mean hypocrites, underneath the criteria. If it's hyper, it's above. If it's hypo, it's beneath. So don't be like somebody who lives underneath the criteria, a hypocrite. So you have these hypocrites out here who don't even live up to their own standard, never, let alone the standards of the Most High, right? So you don't be like them who say, even though I know Thanksgiving is a lie, right? In context in today, I know it's a lie, but I'm gonna still do it. They're hypocrites, hypocritical, right? But it says, don't be like them in prayer, nor be like them in your giving. Right after it talks about prayer, then it starts talking about, our Father. Because they asked him, how should we pray? He said, our Father, our source, who art in heaven, the heaven of heavens. Hallowed be thy name. Your authority is greater than everybody else's and makes you whole, where it makes everything holy. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, in Arat, even in this earth, the same, or in Adamah, the same way that it is in heaven. And give us this day, this period of time, our daily bread, the manna, the mem nun aleph, the water, blood, and spirit that perfects from the Father, the manna, which even translates to what is it? Give us the things that we don't even know what they are, right? And let them rain down us. Give us this day your daily bread and forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. and lead us not into temptation. You can be tempted, but he will never lead you into temptation. Temptation means you give it into what has tempted you. So lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. And if I can just go ahead and skip ahead a little bit, Matthew chapter 7, now we get into a place where it starts talking about stop worrying about the little insecurities, the little things, the splinter in your brother's eye, and you got a 2x4 sticking out of yours and things of that nature. And it starts talking about those things. And now, and it even tells us beware of the false prophets who are coming and all these different things, right? So by the time we get to verse 21 and 20, what was it, 20, 21, 22, right? Something like that. Yeah. So by the time we get there, it's saying, hey, not everybody who comes in who's going to say, Lord, Lord, after him preaching all this stuff, he says all that stuff has to be rectified and thought about. He says, and now, if you don't do that, he says, look, a lot of people who aren't going to do this, they're going to come to me saying, Lord, Lord, adon and dawn. In our culture, when you repeat something twice, it means that you were saying, pay attention. So he said, everybody going to say, pay attention to me, Lord, 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 pay attention. Not everybody that says that shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but only what? He that doeth the will of my Father, which is in heaven. All the stuff he just preached on the Sermon on the Mount, right? At verse 22, many will come to him in that day, or the day of what it is, saying, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, using the wrong name? And in thy name have we cast out devils, right? Not really doing so. And in thy name have we not done many wonderful works? And maybe you even did some of that, but it wasn't in his name. That'll blow some people's mind. With verse 23, what does he say? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. I was never intimate with you. We were never married. Right? Depart from me, ye that work in iniquity. Right? And then after that, he says, those that do what they're supposed to do, they're going to be like the rock that was, or like a house that's built their foundation upon the rock. So when the waves come in, they'll be secure. But those that are going ahead and doing this wishy-washy stuff, sometimes in, sometimes not, hokey pokey. Today you got your left foot in, tomorrow you got your left foot out, right? Like those who are hokey pokey with this thing, he says, look, there's coming a time to where these winds and waves are going to set up and you're going to be, everything's going to be washed away. And it says after that, when he finished saying those things, people were astonished by his doctrine. And why were they astonished? It said they were astonished for he taught them as having authority and not as the scribes. The same scribes and Pharisees, by the way, he said that we should know the law greater than them. So people were not astonished by Yeshua because he didn't teach law. They were actually astonished by Yeshua because he knew the law greater than the scribes and Pharisees. Right? So even that, right? And we have a whole thing on the Sermon on the Mount. We're going to have to at some point redo the Sermon on the Mount series because they took it down on the last YouTube channel, but see, that in and of itself, that's our sweet spot. We use that a lot because a lot of people try to misquote a lot of stuff after the Sermon on the Mount, a lot of stuff before, they try to misuse it, and we're not doing it correct. So you got to know this stuff. We can't be separate. You said if you're the real Jews, why are you talking about New Testament? Well, first of all, there's no such thing as Old and New Testament. Secondly, I don't profess to be a Jew because the letter J doesn't exist in either language or Paleo-Hebrew or Hebrew. Right now, if you're talking about Yiddish and Germanic stuff and tied into the Bible and stuff like that, or tied into somebody's language, and you're going to be a Talmudic, sure. But I don't claim to be a real Jew because I can't be something that I'm not, right? I can't claim to be Shemitic, and I can claim to be from a place where even who you call the real Jews, they have to admit that I'm Israel, but they try to call me I'm Beta Israel, but I know which tribe I'm from. So, like I said, that was a nice try and everything. And if you were going to say hello, I think you should identify yourself as a human being. So hello to you, if that was the goal. But that doesn't seem to be your goal. It just seems to be your goal to try and use that homonym. But either way, you're speaking fallacy. Why would I be a real Jew when I can't be a Jew? In my culture, we don't even use the letter J. Whether you believe it's because of Judea or whatever, like in our culture, we don't use the letter J. So how can I be something that I can't, that we wouldn't even pronounce? I'm not trying to be something I'm not. Because of who I am is why you even asked that question, to try and deny who I am. Reality is, though, I'm not into self-denial. I used to be very great at self-denial. I used to want to be a token. I thought that's what you were supposed to do. However, I'm not into self-denial anymore. I love myself too much to deny myself anything. But I would never deny myself of who I am by claiming to be something that I can't be. I would never be a Jew. You said all Africans have Hebrew heritage. It all started. No, not every African has Hebrew heritage, but you know, we try to oversimplify it, right? Now there are a lot more Hebrews that are African and Africans that are Hebrew than there are Israelites, because not all Hebrews are Israelites, but definitely all Israelites are Hebrews. But if you the person when they mention Jew, they're trying to do really more so of an Israelite thing, because really when you say Jew, you should really make it with Alpha or Hebrew, right? But not all Israelites are Hebrew. So even in that, we have to kind of be pump the brakes a little bit on that too. And by the way, it doesn't mean that if you're not an Israelite that you can't experience heaven. We're just speaking facts. You said people who ask that don't understand the culture. Yeah, and I'm still learning too. You said Hebrew Israelite, the Bible says so. Okay, not every Hebrew is an Israelite, and not every Israelite is a Hebrew, is my point. If you don't mind my reiterating that. Because Avda or Eber or Ibra, depending on which version of the Bible you're reading, he comes way before Israel. Israel comes out of Abraham and is a grandson of Abraham. By the way, Father Abraham had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham. Abraham had more than just Ishmael and Isaac, right? He had many sons, right? So Abraham, even that part of Hebraic culture is a lot bigger than what we're talking about, right? So Hebrew is a lot more of a catch-all than what we think, but Israel is not as much, even though the children of Abraham have become like many stars. That's not only referring to Israel, even though Israelites have become like many stars as well, right? But you could say Israel is a galaxy amongst the many stars of the Hebrew nation, but not every Hebrew is an Israelite, and not every Israelite is a Hebrew. And yeah, and even with that, Romans chapter 9, verse 6, not even every Israelite is an Israelite, because you still got to be adopted in your position. You still got to do what's necessary. You still have to go through what we call in other cultures your rites of passage, right? Right. That's like me saying every I don't know. So my grandfather's name is William, right? On my father's side. So that's like me saying every person out of William is the same as every person out of Kofi. It doesn't make sense, right? Like my grandfather had 5 children, and so in the 5 children that he had, those children have had many children themselves, and so those children branched out. But I come from a lineage of one of those children out of the 5. I'm not from every person, right? So you can't say that every person who is of Kofi, right, my child, and so on and so forth, right, is the same as has the same lineage exactly as every person that came out of William, who's 2 generations removed. Same thing with Abraham. Abraham had many sons, has many grandchildren out there, has many great, 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 whatever grand, right, for millennia now. And so Israel is a different branch of that tree. You said, so does that mean Moses had many wives since he had other sons? Um, no. Abraham had Hagar, Sarah, and then had another wife. And the other wife gave him the last wife gave him 6 children. Moses had one wife, right? If we're talking about many sons as far as in a prophetic sense, then I guess you could say that, but I'm talking physically right now. Right. But when we talk about a Jew, that's what I was saying earlier. I'm not a Jew or a Jewish, right? I don't claim to be. And a Jew, especially if the Jew is claiming Ashkenazi or Khazarian blood lineage, you have to realize that that's not Shemitic, but that's Japhetic. And that's something I learned from Jews or Jewish people, by the way. Right. But Abraham, yeah, Abraham, I remember Sarah told him to lie down with Hagar because she thought that's what the promise meant. And even though he could have said no, he went ahead and did that. He had drama out of that. Sarah kicked Hagar and Ishmael to the curb. Then she had Isaac. She died. After she died, he started taking care of Ishmael again and Isaac, and then he got married again, and he had 6 more sons before he passed away. All right, so that's more so what I'm speaking on in that regard. So great question, though. Yeah, how you doing, Doll? I am. How you doing? You said the term Beta Israel came from Ashkenazis who aren't even Hebrew. Right. So the Ashkenazi Jews will say, "Oh yeah, we'll recognize you because you guys do have blood and everything. And our sisters actually carry more of the DNA. They say you're supposed to be Jewish, but nevertheless, right? They'll say you guys can be Jewish, but you have to be Beta Israel. And Beta, by the way, is dealing with what? Alphabet, which means you're dealing with Greco-Roman culture that's crept into what they do too, showing you the people where they come from. See, language is a peculiar institution. Peculiarity in language is important. If you don't know what the language of Israel is and somebody using something different, then you can tell right away. So if you're telling me you're going to use Greco-Roman stuff to declare the word of the Most High, and you're going to use the Talmud interchangeably or more so than you use the actual Tanakh or the Torah, then I got to call you out, right? By your standard, by your belief, right? By your belief system. We got to be honest about that, right? That if I study even what you say is the language and you don't use it correctly, then we got to figure out what's going on, right? Like even like people don't think about it. This is even in the Bible. We only think about what happened after. We keep forgetting that your Bible gives you a bunch of reference points. For example, if we know that basically, like I say 9.5 tribes, right? Because we kind of mix up how the tribes work. You know, the Levites, some of them left and some of them stayed. But we know that if the northern tribes, there were like 9 tribes and then some of the Levites as well. So that's why I say 9.5 tribes. And we know that they left after what happened with Assyria. Then when you keep talking about the northern kingdom, you don't even realize the northern kingdom is not Israelite anymore, right? So we already have issue. If you talk about King Herod was not an Israelite. He was actually part of the same family that you get Caligula and who's the person? Well, no, Caligula and Nero from, right? Caligula meaning little boots, and I forget what Nero's name means, right? Neros Caesar, Never Caesar or Nero is actually supposed to be the Antichrist spirit that you're supposed to worry about. The number of the name, right, is actually spelled out as Neven Caesar, right, in our culture. So if you actually learn about him, you'll actually figure out what is the spirit attached that you need to make sure that you're not holding on to. Anything that he would have held on to, you need to be very, very much so separated from that. Yeah, I hear you using 526. Those distinctions are put in place to deny someone the right of return. Yeah, exactly. Or even the right to finance that they should be getting. Because remember, Israel, this modern Israel gets a whole lot of money, gets a whole lot of reparations, especially from the United States of America. And y'all don't even think, why would the United States of America give Israel money? Y'all think it's just because they're saying that they're the chosen people. There's reparations. They were killing them off. They helped. Look at those train tracks leading up to Auschwitz and stuff and other concentration camps. You'll discover that a lot of those train tracks have American names on them. They made money off of it. Don't forget Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola was making money. They had Nazi ads and they had American ads or Allied power ads. And then when they couldn't go into Germany anymore, they just had people stay there. They made Fanta. That's why Fanta is around. Fanta was them basically, they started off with Fanta apple and now you got Fanta orange, grape, and all this other stuff. That's pineapple and all that stuff. It started off where they were making real soda out of, real juice sodas. They were making them over in Germany. Right. So, like this thing runs deeper, but we don't even but we don't even think about those things. Like these things run deeper. You had the cartoons too. You had Donald Duck that was a Nazi and Donald Duck that was for America. You can look it up. Like it's not even that hard to look up. You said, what do I claim to be part of Israel? Would I say I'm an Israelite? Of course I would. Like I said, even modern Israelites say that my tribe is Israelite. Right? I would say that there's a difference between a Jew and an Israelite anyways, at least many of them. There are some that obviously have bloodline, but not all of them do, right? But it comes to a certain point to where, see, we got to come out of this thing because people will try to say that I'm the reverse racist or whatever they try to make you out to be. And the reality is that I still believe that Israel should be saved and sealed according to Revelation 7, so that the end of Revelation 7 will be there that all might be able to come in that want to be grafted in, right? Romans chapter 11, 1 Corinthians chapter 11, Romans chapter 7. I'm sorry, Revelation chapter 7, right? So even in all those things, you still not all Israel, and even Romans chapter 9, verse 6, we just said it earlier, not all Israel is Israel. But Paul says in Romans chapter 10, verse 1, it is still my prayer that Israel would be saved. right? Like, so we're still dealing with the promise. And it's interesting. See, here's the wild part about it that I think nobody wants to talk about, right? And how you doing, Minister Shante, if I didn't say so earlier? Here's the wild part that I don't think people want to really talk about. Why is it that nobody had a problem with the promise of the Most High when the Jews had to look a certain way, but then when the Jews don't look the way that you think they do, now everybody's got a problem with it. I would say, like, let's start there. Why is that a problem? Why, like, for example, why do people not know? Or maybe it's just because you don't know. Maybe you don't know. But why do people not study? See, because in the early 1900s, we were fighting for reparations still, more so than what we fight today. Right? People that think they deserve reparations, our people, our diaspora. And guess what they put down as a reason to give us reparations? They put down a reason to give us reparations is because that we were Israel. It wasn't denied that we were Israel, by the way, but it was said just because you're Israel doesn't mean that you deserve reparations. But then after World War II, they started giving reparations to Israel, and they said that it mattered that you were Israel. I'm just saying, why don't we have honest conversation about that? You told me it didn't matter that you were Israel to get reparations when the Israelites looked a certain way, right? But then when they looked another way, you said that they do get reparations. I'm just saying, like, this is stuff that's real, right? And I'm not saying that just because somebody is Jewish or somebody's a lighter skin tone Israelite means they're less Israelite than anybody else. We're not going to do blood quantum stuff and colorism stuff up in here. That's not what we're about. I'm just asking questions like, why is it that you say that it's wrong for somebody to say who they are? You sound like what they did to us in the 1900s. You're just repeating the same thing. Somebody says, be careful about people like Harvey Weinstein. Hashtag Me Too movement, which is basically a feminist movement, which is basically white women up top, and then maybe we'll allow some other women in, because you know there's a difference between feminism and womanism and all that other stuff, right? So feminist movement says hashtag Me Too. Look at all these guys. Look at the Weinsteins, and look at this person, and look at that person, and look at Woody Allen, and look at this one, and look at this one, look at this one. Look at what they're doing to women. Look at the casting couch situation. It's so terrible. I agree with you. Let's fight against that oppression. Black man says, hey, you guys won't let Michael Jackson say, kick me, don't you black or white man, but y'all will go ahead and say that you can kill off N-words and stuff all over this place and you won't do anything to them. And y'all say, reverse racist. I'm just asking, why is one reverse racism, but the other one can't be racism? How do you get to tell somebody that you're not dealing in racism, but as soon as they say the reverse of what you say, they're reverse racism? Well, by definition, if it's reverse racism, then why wouldn't it be racism? You said God doesn't exist. That's cool. I don't worship God anyways, but thank you so much for being on. Right? And if that's your way of saying hello, I think we should start up with hellos first. That's better. Right? But hear what I'm saying. When we were fighting for reparations and we said it's because we're Israel, they said it doesn't matter that you're Israel, you can't get reparations. But when somebody else said that we're Israel and they're fighting for reparations, they kept giving them, and still to this day give them reparations. I'm just saying, you gotta, then you say that Kanye is a reverse, and look, Kanye's not a perfect representation at all. I totally admit that, right? But then you say Kanye and Kyrie are the reverse racists, but when it was happening the other way, it wasn't racism. You got to make that make sense for me. You tell me that if it's a certain look of people, right, who are Zionists, who will kill off my cousins, the Palestinians, you will tell me that that's okay because that's their land and we should fight for them because they're the chosen people. But then when they tell you I'm beta Israel and you won't even admit that you got to look a certain way to be alpha Israel and a certain way to be beta, they'll admit that I'm Israel, but they'll say that, oh, he's only beta. And when I open my mouth about it, you got to ask yourself, why are you not mad about that? That's all I'm saying is, like, keep the same energy at least. Like, at least help me out with that. Like, keep the same energy. Like, something not making sense. Why are you so mad about what Weinstein did? But when somebody says, hey, Leo Cohen, do you even know who that is? We just brought up his interview a couple of days ago, right? Do we need to go over Leo Cohen again? Let's listen to Leo Cohen again, right? We just listened to Leo Cohen not too long ago, and he was busy telling y'all that he needed to help out the black community and all these things or whatever. My wife and I listened to the whole episode with a whole bunch of empty, void nothingness, right? But we listened to the whole episode. But let's listen to what he had to say when Leo Cohen is challenged of what, of what's there, right? When Leo Cohen is interviewed and he's challenged on the fact that he's killing all black folk or allowing black folks' music to be sitting up there promoting something that we shouldn't be keeping as a value. Let's see what he had to say when he was challenged. And then when he's challenged and how he lies, I won't bring, maybe we'll bring up Dame Dash again, Dame Dollar again, but he literally lies about what he did, as far as Jay-Z and all these other people. We know that he did. Right? But once again, let's look at what he has to say. This is what, Kanye said we should have a problem with the lies. And y'all like, oh, he's a reverse racist. But when Leo Cohen says what he's about to say, you don't call it racism. I'm just find it fascinating. But let's listen. It's not me. It's not me talking. This is not Kofi talking. I didn't write this out. This is something you can look up for yourself. We don't have anybody behind the scenes, right, saying this. This is right. This is what you guys say that we should ignore. Dave Chappelle told you if it's blacks and Mexicans, you call it a gang. If it's Italians or I forget what the other one, Italians or whomever, you call it a mafia, or Italians or Irishmen, you call it mafia, right? Mafioso. And he said, if you call it a bunch of people, a certain other group of people, you call it a coincidence and you never speak about it. I just want people to be held to the same standard. If you say we all should be held to a standard, why shouldn't we be held to a standard? But let's just listen. Let's listen and see what Leo Cohen, who's somebody who's been messing up the community and hip hop and making all money off of stuff or whatever for a long time. Let's just see what he has to say. And you tell me why it's okay that he's going to say what he says. And and nobody's out here coming against him, right? He's the power behind the throne. All these artists out here, not just hip hop either, but he mainly focuses on hip hop now. But he's all over the place. Has all these artists out here messed up, on drugs, drugged out, killing, doing all these things, in prison, etc. And but let's see what he has to say. And you tell me why it's okay that he said what he said, but you mad at Kanye or Kyrie because of what they said. You tell me. Let's listen.
Really rough, particularly on women. But I think it helped change the course of the crack epidemic. I don't know what's this opioid thing, man.
Well, being a crackhead wasn't cool back then. Being a crackhead wasn't cool. Now it seems like they're making it cool to be drinking lean and syrup and
it's the most dangerous. It's the most dangerous thing that's facing our society.
So why sign an artist that would promote that?
Because I already answered that question. You weren't paying attention. She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent. But I have to. I can't give up on people.
But I'm saying that's hypocritical, though. You're saying
it's opportunistic. Yeah. I got people to feed. I got a business to run.
You're gonna make Dame Dash take this clip and call you a culture vulture.
Who's Dame Dash? You brought him up. I don't even know him. So you bring his name up. I don't even know him. So
y'all made a lot of money together.
Made a lot of money.
Come on, Leo. Don't do that to him.
I don't know him. I really don't. So,
and by the way, that's all you have to say when you're in a powerful position and you have certain cultures. All you got to do is just say, "Oh no, I don't know him. Who is that to me? They not on my level." This and that. But let's listen to Dame Dash. Now there's going to be some cursing on here. Please, if you can't take curse words or anything like that, now's the time to go ahead and leave out. I'm not promoting cursing, but we're just going to listen to what somebody has to say. Now let's listen to Dame Dash, who he say he doesn't know. Everybody's going to down.
No, like I said, I can't speak on anybody.
He's being interviewed by Vlad, who is of the same culture, the same people that Leo Cohen is, by the way. Vlad TV. Y'all be thinking that Vlad is some of the cats. Some of y'all used to think he was black and all that. Vlad is a Russian Ashkenazi man himself. I'm not saying he's evil because of it. I'm saying that I want you to hear some of the questions. I want you to get the culture. I want you to see how he's trying to protect. And Dame Dollar's going to keep bringing it right back to the same thing. Y'all ready? Yeah. Basically, Vlad is a federal agent for real on these streets. Whether he's officially or unofficially, he's an agent, right? But let's go ahead and get this. All right, you ready? How you doing, Coleman? I'm sorry I missed you earlier. All right, let's listen. That's what we have to say. Sorry, that last one was the Breakfast Club interviewing Leo Cohen. This one's going to be Vlad TV. Vlad is interviewing Dame Dollar. Here we go.
My beef was with Lior because I think he's a fake CEO and I think he's fronting on my culture, but he can't front on anybody else. And I'm calling him out publicly and I want him to stop trying to rape my culture. Go make some money with some other people. Like, stop having your agenda be hip hop. Like when Joey was like, our agenda to open up asylum was to go, it didn't say nothing about going to get no rock and roll. It was go to get people that they don't even care about and make money from them. Yeah, just get money in their culture. Let them do it. Let's let the violence stay there. Let's benefit from the violence and not bring in, like, you know what I mean? It was like they have people that their job is to create beef so that they can monetize it, pause. But they don't let their culture feel it. But they make money from it. And they can't make any money or get any respect in their culture. That's why they're in our culture. Because the minute that they were allowed to be there, they would go. But they just can't. You know, the question should be, why don't you do something besides rap? And if you are all into rap, what have you done to give back to the community? I didn't know why that wasn't asked. Those were the questions that I was like, damn, if you're going to cross me, Combat Jack, Reggie Osei, ask some good questions. It almost looked like it was scripted. But, you know, it is what it is. It's the perfect example of what they always do to us. They always try to, you know, offer some paper bag of money or whatever it is, whatever selfish agenda, which is the test, and then have us divide so they can benefit and take the fight off of them and put the focus on them. Never had a beef with Jay. Always with Lior and his whole crew. He's the one that ruined Rockefeller, Lior Cohen.
There was, when you talk about that situation, they gave Jay Rockefeller back after you guys sold it, right?
I don't know, man. I don't want to go back to that. I'm just talking about me having to beef with Lior Cohen. See? You see how it always transitions back to Jay? Lior Cohen. That's my beef. Pause. Not Jay.
What do you think about the new label? Was it 300?
I don't know nothing about his whatever they doing. Whatever he's doing is robbing whoever he in business with. So whoever's in business with them, I suggest they check their paperwork. I bet you've given a lot of your ass is gone, about 360 of it. Maybe about 400 now. If he say 300, then he mean he taking 4.
I can tell you that Young Thug, I heard, was signed to 300.
So you should ask him about his contract.
He's managed by Birdman.
Said more of this liberal stuff. You need to be in tune with stuff. Study people before you talk about them. I could care less about Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, etc. That's your beef, right? That's what the masses that you serve. I don't got nothing to do with that. But I was putting on that to say, so see, when we're talking about this conversation, we're being intellectually dishonest. You can hear like that there's more to the story. When somebody calls you out, you get blackballed, you get labeled as a reverse racist, but you don't keep the same energy. If you do it one way, then you got to consider it racist before you can consider it to be reverse racist. You can't have a reverse of something as if there's nothing that was started. You can't have a pendulum swing if there was no momentum in one direction first. You can't have a second swing if there was never a first swing. You see what I'm saying? But we have this weird conversation that's unintelligent, that's intellectually dishonest. How you doing, Uno Nuno? Sorry, I missed you on there. And how you doing, Michael? I'm sorry, I missed you as well. Michael, excuse me. Did I cram to comprehend why melanin folks go to Vlad TV? We prop that show up with our talent. Most definitely, right? That show is just basically based off of Black culture and, you know, somebody who misrepresents it and tries to tell you why we're bad for trying to protect it, you know? So, but I'm just saying, like, people don't want to have the honest dialect about it. Yeah, it's gaslighting at its best, right? Like, people don't want to have honest dialect about this. Like, if it's wrong for us to say the K word, and I believe it is, then why is it not okay? Why is it okay by the same people that don't want you to do that for them to make a lot of money off of the killing and prostituting of your culture? And by the way, it's not even your culture. That's the thing. It's like when you talk about hip hop, I get that, yes, it's music that we create, but comprehend, like, the reason why you speak in drugs, like, you think that you speak drugs because of the, you know, because that's your culture. Right? You think the pictures about Thanksgiving, we've been talking about this, we've been on for quite some time. So those that are coming in, we're hitting like the 3-hour mark at this point. We're going a little long today. But, you know, like, I'm just trying to get you, like, at all these things that we're talking about, you think that, you know, nobody wants to talk about the reality of this and talk about the propaganda and talk about all these different things that have been here and talk about, like, people are not just coming up with this stuff randomly. Yeah, how can I be held accountable for something I didn't do. Yeah, remember that comment on accountability. Yeah, somebody made that very comment today, and we keep having people. How do you hold me accountable for something I didn't do? Nobody asked you to be held accountable. We said that there's the truth of something that happened. Yeah, defending yourself against an offense is not an offense. It's defense. Yeah, we should never. You should never get mad at the sheep for bad. If it sees a wolf. I'm just saying. And you guys think the wolves are only dressed in black or white skin. That's part of the problem that we have, is you think that every white person is bad, or every black person is bad, or every black person that says something about a white person is bad, or every white person that might say something about a black person is bad. Evil is evil. If Leo Cohen was making money off the Red Hot Chili Peppers, ask the Red Hot Chili Peppers if they got screwed by him or not. You see what I'm saying? Like you're so stuck on this. The Beastie Boys got messed over by Leo Cohen. Right? Like why do you see what I'm saying? It's demonic and a devilish move. Devils devalue things. It's a devilish move to try and devalue somebody by simply saying, "Oh, you're crazy," or "You're awful because I don't like what you have to say." Right? Like we can tell what time it is with people who can't even hear or listen to somebody long enough. Right? Where is the turkey? I don't know. There didn't used to be a turkey for Thanksgiving. You got to ask people why they started using turkeys. We already talked about that, though. If you'd like to learn more about that, you can go back on the recording on our YouTube channel. Feel free to, and we'll make sure that we get that info to you ASAP. Right? Matter of fact, it'll be loaded up soon. But we have to like see what's going on with these things. We don't want to have honest conversation about it, because honest conversation means that sometimes we have to admit that wrong was done. Why is it wrong? Why has it become wrong to admit wrongdoing? You got to ask yourself that question. Oh, hey, Grand Rising, how you doing? Got on the big screen. Right? We got to ask ourselves, why has calling out wrongdoing become wrong? You have to ask yourself that. Like you got to ask yourself, that's not me. That's not a me problem. If somebody says, Kofi, you know what? You should stop cussing out folk. I got to go. You're right. Like maybe I should just stop cussing everybody out. And I should change those things. If somebody says, Kofi, you know what? It shouldn't just be about swinging on somebody without listening to them. I should say, you know what? You're right. And I should become a better person. Right? If somebody says, you know what, Kofi? It's not okay for you to keep living outside of what is your culture and things like that. Maybe you should learn your language. Maybe you should learn some story. Maybe you should promote truth. I say, you know what? You're right. Maybe I should. You know what I'm saying? But people have a problem with it, and people try their best to make you look bad. And that's weird that you would say, I'm on TikTok live on Thanksgiving. You're on TikTok live on my TikTok live on Thanksgiving. That doesn't even make sense. But people are looking for whatever they can to try their best to best you or to tell you why what you're saying is wrong. And when we finally come into the knowledge of self, now people don't see. Watch this. Let's do this as we get ready to take our leave. Right? I don't know if this will be another 15, 20 minutes or so, but we're doing a little extra on today since a lot of people got a little extra time. We'll give you a little extra. Real talk. How can one be self-accountable if you cannot account for self? Might I just ask, how can one be self-accountable if you cannot account for self? If you get an accountant, what is an accountant's responsibility in your life? Oh yeah, we're doing well out here. I got a little opening up here. We got it right. What is an accountant's? If you were to hire an accountant, what would you require of your accountant? Just question for you. If you hired an accountant, what would you require of that accountant? right? Okay, praise God, Evelyn. And thanks for being on, right? You said the accountant, yeah, factual financial information, of course. Said the accountant better be precise with calculations. Precise, there you go. Manage my spending records. Right? Thanks for being part of the community, Julian. Right? So we expect specific things based off of numbers. Make sure that you give me context and make sure you give me facts. Don't just tell me, well, the numbers are doing well if the context is that I'm actually hemorrhaging money and the numbers aren't as well as they used to be. I need context. I need facts. Right? You need to be trustworthy. And then if you don't know, what actually happens too is every once in a while, you got to hire an accountant outside of your accountant, and they have to go through and check your accountant's books to make sure your accountant is doing what they're supposed to. Because sometimes your accountant just might know certain things, or they might be messing you over, which is how a lot of people get got with their money. It's usually not because of their life decisions, but because their accountants are taking money from them just to ensure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. Right? So if you want me to be self-accountable and be a self-accountant, then how do I become a self-accountant? Yeah, they had to do an audit. Thanks, babe. That's the word you saw I was looking for the word. So you got to do an audit, right? On your accountant every once in a while to ensure that your accountant is about their business. And the accountant shouldn't have any problem with it. They shouldn't get mad. They shouldn't come at you. How you going to dare give me an audit? Why? Because this is part of doing business, is the cost of doing business, right? So if I have no self-accountant or self-accountability, if I don't have the ability to audit what you've been telling me, then how in the world can you ask for me to be self-accountable? You don't want me to be self-accountable. What you want is you want to say whatever you want, and you want me to account for it. Really, you don't even want me to account for it. You want to account for what you say, and you just want me to believe whatever you put down. You don't want me to audit. When I question what you say, what I'm doing is I'm giving an audit, and you don't like to be audited. But see, if you're telling the truth, you should welcome an audit. Matter of fact, a great accountant will say, hey, every couple of years at least, you need to make sure that you audit me. Now, I'm not saying everything needs to be audited by everybody, right? I'm not saying you need to audit every single thing. I'm not saying that you should, because it gets to a point where if you audit too much, well, then you can't even move, right? But every once in a while, it should be okay for somebody to say, like, for stuff that I speak, we have stuff that goes back years and years and years and years on many different platforms. Many different people have heard it. Many people that have been with us for a while. Many people that knew me before anybody cared about who I was, right? As far as this whole, new virtual stuff that's been happening and things that have been popping, right? So you should be able to go and talk to people and ask about my life. And you should be able to have somebody give you an audit. Oh yeah, when he said this is actually, yeah, he was. If he said he was in the military, yeah, I knew him when he was in the military. He said that he served here. Yeah, I knew when he served here. He said that him and his wife do this. Yeah, you should be able to ask my wife certain things. He said blah, blah. Like, you should be able to do those things. Right? You should be able to do those things and audit. You don't want an audit done because you don't want anybody to know what really happened. And really, let's be honest, you probably don't want to know what really happens because you don't want to take accountability either. Maybe just keep it 100. I have to admit that my father and my grandfather and my mother and my grandmothers and my grandfathers, my grandmothers, and many different people, I have to admit to you that when you do an audit of my family, I got a lot of people in my family who have not done right. I have to admit to you that I've had a lot of unrighteousness in my family. And that's the only reason I become a curse breaker, is because I can recognize the curses. So when you bring up a curse in my family, I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. That did happen to my family. And this happened. And they didn't worship correctly. And they didn't take account for this. And they didn't take care of children. And they didn't blah, blah. And this and that. I have to admit to those things. Why? Because somebody got to break the curse. If I won't take accountability for it, then it continues. Let's keep it 100 with you, though. A lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people say, well, I know my grandfather was out here, waving the Confederate flag, but so what? He's fighting for states' rights. Okay, well then you know that when they wave the Confederate flags, those states' rights he's talking about, you want to go to Missouri, you want to go to Mississippi, you want to go to Alabama, you want to go to South Carolina, you want to go to Texas, you want to go to Florida, you want to go to Virginia, whichever one. We can read why they seceded from the Union, and they'll tell you they were fighting for the right to own slaves. That's what your daddy, your granddaddy, your great-great-granddaddy, your great-great-great-great-granddad, that's what they died for and fought for and waved those flags for. Now, will you break the curse or will you continue it? And that's hard. I get it. That's hard to be like, oh, I got to look at my own flesh and say, I need to put it in subjection. See, these words that we use, they're not cold words, they're real words. Right? I got to put this thing in subjection. Too worried about reputation, right? Trying to save face. Right? But I might have to put this in this flesh that I had has to be put in subjection. There's some curses that come with this flesh. Yeah, allergic to acknowledgement. You say Confederate, matter of fact, the Confederate flag, what you call the Confederate flag is not even the flag. That's just the Confederate Jack. And the Confederate Jack was based off of the Iroquois nation or the Haudenosaunee people, what their flag was. They were an actual confederacy recognized by the world. You know that the Confederacy was never recognized by any country? Even though they were doing business, and still to this day, they have Confederate parties and stuff in Brazil. So obviously other countries were okay with it. But like that's not even their flag. That's not even your fight. It's like when people talk about the Nazi, the Nazi symbol and stuff like that. That's a Tibetan form of peace. That's a Tibetan symbol for peace. But now you only think about it through somebody else's lens. So, so you'd be surprised how easily something can be changed. But people say, I waved that flag. You can't take it, right? But those people were traitors. If you say, you're the same people that say, F y'all, if y'all don't like America, you can go somewhere else. Well, then you need to tell that to the people that fought against America. That's your problem. That's your family that did that. I didn't do that. If anything, I fought for America and I fought for the Union. I'm a veteran. 17 years old. I was ready to say, give me liberty or give me death. That's where my mind was at 17. But somebody would come on here and discredit my sacrifice. And will tell me that your parents, your great person's sacrifice to come away from America was more important and more valuable. And look, I still respect the fact that they died for what they believed in, but let's not act like they believed in peace and harmony. You know what I'm saying? Let's not act like that was the fight or that they fought in peace and harmony. Exactly. Taking accountability is hopefully to start breaking those generational curses. You got to admit the generational curses. You said they came from the indigenous people. Who is they? You talking about people who wore the Confederate flag? Or you talking about the Haudenosaunee? You talking about Negroes? You talking about which one? I don't know. I was talking about something else. We might have a little bit of a delay there, so I don't want to assume anybody's talking about. But I'm just saying, we have all this stuff that we're talking about, and it's not based off of reality. Lack of accountability. How can I be self-accountable if I can't account for self? There'll be people that will tell you, stop calling each other kings and queens. You know, the kings are tyrants and stuff. Mansa Musa wasn't a tyrant. That's your problem. Montezuma wasn't a tyrant. That's your problem. John Horse wasn't a tyrant. I know you can't say he's a king necessarily, but see, these are people that we look up to. Queen Khalifa wasn't a tyrant. The Khalifa people that you know name California after and don't even know. The original Haudenosaunee, the original 5 tribes that came together in Iroquois Nation, they weren't tyrants. Matter of fact, one of them was, and they ended up changing his heart and changing him to be the least person that you had to worry about. And therefore, he had to, before he could become the leader of their nations, he had to first stop being a tyrant. Like, who are we talking about when we're talking about this stuff? This is not our stuff that you're asking me to carry somebody else's stuff. That's not my stuff. You're asking for me to carry somebody else's culture. That's not my culture. You know, you might not like it, but it's real. Like, that's not my culture. It's not. I'm not saying my culture has always been perfect and everything that we've done to the people who profess my culture has always been perfect, but I'm not going to take on something that's not mine. And that's what you get upset about, is you see, because I've stopped taking on something that's not mine. If the original American, by definition, is a copper-colored person indigenous to America, then I've taken that down. I've stopped worrying about that. Right? If Omexi came before Mexico, because they don't even have an X sound, then I'm going to start acting like Mexico preceded Omexi. we've been talking about the Thanksgiving myth for a while. Like we getting ready to take our leave. I've been on for like 3 hours plus now at this point. So that's what we're dealing with. But we're just talking about in general now, right? Like we're dealing with stuff that is not, and we have the recording. If you want to listen to the recording on YouTube, we have that on there as well, right? And on the podcast as well, and on Facebook as well. But we have to get to this place where you want me to be accountable, self-accountable, but you don't like it when I give you an audit. Make grand rising to you, right? If I give you an audit, right? If you tell me that this is what this is what the books say, then I'm supposed to audit it. And when I audit it and I find inconsistencies, then the audit is not done just to call out the inconsistencies. The audit is done to make sure that the money is redone, that if we need to take legal action to get some of the money taken back, we can, and to make sure that we take better steps in the future to never have to deal with these same things again. Right? So you don't like the audit, but don't ask me to be accountable if you won't let me take account and then won't let me audit. Stop asking my people to be accountable to something, but you say we can't audit. And stop telling my people once we audit and find things that are wrong, we should continue to just live in what's wrong. That's not for us to do. It should have never been for us to do. And you had a situation where you could force people to do it, but you can't anymore. And that's what the irritating part is now. What irritates people is because they can't control the situation. What irritates people is people have learned, wait a minute, I can have my own business and I don't have to work for y'all, and I can look however I want to look and wear whatever I want to wear. I can speak whatever I want to speak. Like people are informed now before they're indoctrinated. And by the way, that's not our fault either. You're mad at the wrong people for that. You need to be mad at the people who allowed the stuff like the internet to finally be used outside of war, because y'all have been using the internet truthfully since World War II. Y'all know the internet existed since World War II, because you don't know what the internet is. You think the internet is just what you type into on the computer. The internet is all those wires that y'all put under the water. That's the internet, right? They want you to believe that the internet, is just something that started happening in the 1990s. Like, people have been using the internet since World War II. And the fact that you allowed us to be able to get our hands on it and for us to actually look at something. And by the way, we were already doing it in libraries and things like that anyways, but now you gave us access. Even if you were to cut the internet off, it's too late. Now too many people have heard the truth. But you can't cut it off, because if you cut it off, you cut yourself off. You put yourself in that position. I didn't do that. I didn't create the nonsense. I didn't create the lie. And I didn't create the fact that you could tell that somebody can look up the lie. And if somebody's patient enough, even if their first 10 Google searches don't show something, if they're willing to keep scrolling, eventually they'll get to out of the 1,000 Google searches or 10,000 Google searches, whatever. If they're patient enough, they'll find what they're looking for. You open that up. Yeah, so they say Alexander Graham Bell, right? Even the word phone means voice. Phone, right, means voice. So telegram is to teleport a voice, right? And by the way, we were doing that already anyways. Even if we weren't doing it through, the technology you say we are, but we actually helped to create some of that technology anyways. However, if you want to go back to beating on drums, right? You caught up on stuff, and now you say you do it differently. Since you do it differently, you say you do it better. But we were already talking about, stuff. Smoke signals, drum signals. That's 1111. Thanks, babe. Right? All these different things. Like, we had access to these things. Now we're simply saying that we want to be able to have our own. We are okay with us being our own. We are okay with having ownership and taking accountability for our own. You've been in Southside Chicago. You have your police over there. There are going to be a whole bunch of people that get shot tonight on Thanksgiving, and y'all ain't going to do nothing about it. You might, if you ain't going to do nothing, we might as well step in. Thank you very much. You can leave if you want. We can be self-accountable, but you don't want it. You want us to be held accountable to your standard, because if you thought the killing was wrong, then you would go after every killer. Even if, and I don't suggest we do this, but heck, even if y'all really wanted to, you could go lock up every person that you believe could possibly be a killer You can make sure that you give the rest of the people jobs. You can make sure that you make sure that it's not minimum wage jobs. You can make sure that you help everybody out and give them a stipend for a whole year that will take care of their apartments and stuff like that. And you can help them to clean themselves and make sure you even outlaw alcohol. Now, I'm not with those things, but I say that you should. But you know what? You're with those. Matter of fact, here's a community that did that. You ready for this? Somebody you killed off. His name is Gaddafi. Gaddafi did it. You killed him for it, but he did it. Outlaw. So y'all look at him bad. Y'all trying to do this, and y'all use Obama, a black person. Remember, Obama's domestic. Every president has a foreign and domestic thing that they're supposed to take care of, right? His domestic thing was LGBTQ plus, right? And his foreign agenda was what? Make sure that Africa was open for America. African nations had stopped dealing with America so much, and so he was supposed to open that back up, right? And when they killed him off under his watch, under Obama's watch, when they killed off Gaddafi had came up with money that they were going to use. It was going to be actually backed up by their own resources, because money is not real in many places because it's not backed up by gold or silver anymore. So he was going to use something different to back it up. He had it set up already to where when you got married, you got a stipend and you got to be able to be in your house for the first year without paying for it. He had it set up where he had women that were his personal bodyguard. So it wasn't even no men up here and women down here thing that they try to teach you about Gaddafi. That's not true at all. He made sure that he had outlawed alcohol because he felt like he didn't need people getting drunk. Okay, whether we agree with that or not, I'm just saying, like, he took steps or whatever that were positive. All you heard about him was that he's trying to be negative. Now, am I saying that he's perfect in everything that he did? Surely not. We're not going to act like, though, that he didn't have his people running and doing well, right? You still got women out here talking about, we need to be able to do whatever men can do and let us be Navy SEALs and this and that or whatever. Okay, fine. Well, Gaddafi said my personal guard is going to be women. I trust them more than I trust men with my life. You see what I'm saying? Like you're into these holy days and all these things of worship and this cultural, nonsensical things, and you don't even think about, let me see what these people are about. For example, like Fidel Castro, far from perfect once again, but do you know that Fidel Castro came to the United States of America first for help? And it was the United States of America that said, yeah, we didn't want y'all to win, so we're not going to help you. We're not going to help feed your people. And since his people had no food and he was upset and frustrated, he said, hey, I need help with somebody. He went looking, and Russia said, we'll help you. That's why he became communist. He came looking for democracy. Y'all say democracy is the key. He came to y'all first. Right? And then on top of that, a lot of people got mad with Malcolm X's and Farrakhan's and Elijah Muhammad and Muhammad Ali and all these different people, African nations and Nelson Mandela, they got mad at him, all these people supporting him. But you know why Africans got really, happy with Fidel Castro is because a lot of African nations were trying to get rid of the U.S., the CIA, the FBI. They were trying to get rid of Belgium. They were trying to get rid of, and thank you, Sister Burns. They're trying to get rid of Belgium. They're trying to get rid of, England, France, Portugal, the Dutch. I don't know if the Dutch by that time, have as much power or whatever, but still, they're trying to get rid of all these people. And when they would get rid of them, they would usually go to America or one of these democratic places first. And they would say, hey, please help us. Help us. Our people have been messed up. They took our food. They put trading embargoes on us now. Then we're able to be for ourselves. Please, somebody help us. And all these democratic countries would say, no, we didn't want y'all to win. And so they started using CIA and, like the recon and Navy SEALs and all these different people, Rangers and stuff. And they started killing them off and doing all this stuff and putting in their own people. So Fidel Castro started actually sending his special services, his special forces over, and they bled Cuban blood on the ground to help protect African nations. So that's why a lot of African nations have no beef with Castro. Although I will admit to you, once again, not perfect. However, we needed help and he showed up. So when it comes to our people, we don't have as much of a problem. And when we talk about this whole thing, as far as all these people that fled, guess what? The people that fled were the people who were part of the fight before, who basically were able to keep a whole bunch of money. And usually they're people who are lighter skinned, because colorism was a big deal. Don't forget that during all the slave stuff going on, we don't talk about Cuba's slave trade and stuff, but Cuba had it to a place where when you had like, I think it was 8 million people there at one point, 3 million of them were not slave owners, and obviously you had the 1%, 1%, but 3% were the free people, so somewhat, and 5 million were slaves. Right? So a lot of them, when they go over, they leaving and stuff and they're traveling over. Those are the people that used to be higher up and that used to be allowed to be somewhat free. And so now when everybody, even though we know Castro wasn't perfect and he kept money for himself and did a lot of stuff, and so did his children, right? But, when the stuff was being taken away, it was the rich folk who were losing it, who always didn't care about the poor folk anyways. And they left and they went out. They don't want to tell you that part of the story. Right? They don't want to tell you that part of the story. Now, once again, I'm not saying Castro is beyond criticism, because I never said that, right? I'm not going to say that. That's not what I'm saying. He's not perfect. However, I'm not going to act like Castro did not make sure he helped out Black nations. This is why in 1992, when Nelson Mandela, he gets free, first place he goes is to Haiti, because Penlam, I'm forgetting his name, something Penlam, whatever his name is. He was somebody who first came out and spoke against what they were doing in South Africa, specifically with Nelson Mandela. Second person he goes to visit is who? Fidel Castro. That's why. So when you have all these people that have these arguments about it, and you're like, man, why are all these people, see, you guys don't know about what Castro's doing, this and this and that. Look, man, I think that it's wrong with what he did with some of these firing squads. I think it's wrong with what he did as far as how they medicated some and didn't medicate others. I think that it's wrong as far as how he just took what people had. Yes, those things are true. All those things are very true. I also believe, though, that it's righteous that he at least was willing to fight for the rights of others that people like America could care less about, and had the CIA go in and start killing people off. Sankara, right? Sankofa. Lumumba, shoot, even Nelson Mandela to a certain extent tried to get into Ethiopia, because couldn't get to him. Haiti, put Papa Doc in there, Baby Doc in there, and then couldn't get him out of there because he messed around and got too powerful. What about what you did at Grenada, or Grenada? Excuse me. What about what you did at Grenada? Right? But you talk about Castro as if he's the only person. Like, I'm more worried about Eisenhower than Castro. Eisenhower, do you know that every president, if you started Eisenhower and just keep going, all of them have stayed in what you call the Vietnam War. You just think that the Vietnam War only happened in Vietnam. America was in Vietnam, or in the Vietnam area way before Eisenhower, real talk. You said the Yanks never cared about slavery? That's not true at all, right? The 8th president is Martin Van Buren. Martin Van Buren is from New York. He's a slave owner. Matter of fact, Deutsch or Dutch was his first language. He's the only president that his first language wasn't English. So we can't do that. We're not going to act like Massachusetts wasn't slave trade capital. We're not going to act like Wall Street wasn't literally a place where you had stocks and bonds. Slaves were the stocks, and what you paid for them were the bonds. That's why people still in prison today, because chattel slavery is legal as long as. So that's why people today, when you go in, you pay bond. Hopefully you can get a bond to be able to get out, right? Because you're the stock. If you're the stock and you can pay the bond, at least a percentage of the bond, you can get out. And once you go back in, you still got to do what? Pay your debt to society. Pay your debt to society, because you're still stock. It has to pay a bond. So they put you in positions where you get paid pennies, so that somebody else, the corporation, the person who owns the prison, they make the money, but you still just stock. Somebody got to pay the bond. So we can't do that either. We got to be honest all the way with it, right? I'm just telling you, you see, like, these things are there. We won't admit to them. We won't have an honest conversation about it. Oh, okay, no problem. You said that's what you meant. They did nothing to stop it. The Civil War was not about slavery. Yeah. Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, that's what they be saying. Oh yeah, the Yanks. Was it Malcolm X said, stop saying the South. He said, as long as you lower than the Canadian border, you South. And technically, you could say even in the Canadian border, because we act like Canada never did anything to Negroes either. I don't know when that started, this whole thing as far as like, oh yeah, when you go to Canada, there's no racism, blah, blah. No, bump that. I've been there enough in my life. I promise you. It ain't this perfect place. But anyways, going back to today, Thanksgiving, the Holy Day, I think we made that part clear. We have more stuff on Thanksgiving, by the way, in our Truth About series. Somebody had asked us about Thanksgiving, so we talked about Thanksgiving on there as well. So, or maybe we talked about Christmas and then we kind of mentioned Thanksgiving. I'm not even sure. There's so much content we put out. However, hopefully you guys enjoy your day. If you want to say Happy Indigenous Day, we'll give you that. Although hopefully every day for you who are indigenous, those of us who are indigenous, hopefully every day becomes a day of happiness, living in, living past the hilarity, or maybe, the hilarity is not there to keep us from crying, but it's actually there to just something that we have as far as having this great thing called life. Our goal, once again, is not to tell you that if you believe in these things, you're evil. Our goal is just to present you something that maybe you've never seen. And so prayerfully, the unseen is something that, takes residence up in your heart, in your life, and helps you to be able to grow, helps you to be able to develop. Hopefully, thank you for the love. Hopefully, this is something that just allows you to see a different context, a different cultural context, something you might have read the entirety of your life and never once realized what it was saying. So I'm thankful for that. Thank you to those who were on prayer. I was on there for a hot second. I was not on there that long, trying to get ready for today. We're thankful to those who came out yesterday as well and got a word from the Most High. We're thankful for those that are part of SOC. We're going to continue to work harder. This is our year in which we're living inside of that which we have pursued. So we're going to hashtag finish strong. Amen. You said, can I discuss if we should pray for unbelievers? Is that scriptural? Yeah. Our goal is to pray for everybody. We just pray, put it like this. The goal is to pray for everybody, but there's levels to everything, right? Pray an actual prayer. That's what I would say. Somebody, a preacher from Kenya that I heard years ago now, he once said something very, very powerful. He said, we have a lot of junk prayers. What do you mean junk prayers? He basically said we have a lot of prayers that, don't really make sense. For example, Yahweh, we're praying that you'll never leave us. Well, his word already said he'll never leave you nor forsake you. You don't have to pray that prayer, right? That's actually, you not having faith. Now, maybe if you were to say like, help me to realize that you'll never leave me nor forsake me. Okay. Right. But we don't have to pray like never leave me nor forsake me. I mean, that's you really saying you don't have faith in what the Most High said. So there's a lot of things like that we pray that are not even asked to pray for, right? However, when it comes to praying for the people, there's levels. So should I pray for the non-believer? Sure. But should my prayer for the non-believer go something like, I pray that they are your child since they're your child. Well, they're not his child. Not even all Israel is Israel. You got to be adopted into this. You have to be recognized to be able to take on a position that you say you take on, right? So I pray that everybody would be his child. That's not really correct, right? And somebody says like, but if you say, hey, I pray that once they come into the knowledge of you, you protect them. I also pray your protection above them as you have it rain on the just and the unjust alike. I pray that you take care of them and help them to have enough time to come into the knowledge of who you are. Like that's a different prayer, right? That's a different type of prayer, So, but we should pray things correctly. A lot of people pray stuff, they'll like even, a lot of people come from the church background, right? So you heard prayers like, Father, we come to you, Father, in the name of Jesus, Father, right now, Father, thanking you, Father, that you're going to help, Father, all these people, Father, to be able to do this, Father, and that, Father, and I ask, Father, right now, Father, in the name, Father, of Jesus, Father, that you help. Well, that's like super repetitive, right? The Bible tells you that you should not be like the pagans and should not just pray super repetitive prayers. Matter of fact, that's in the Sermon on the Mount we went over earlier. Matthew chapter 5, right? Or sorry, Matthew chapter 6, rather. Probably be verses 5 through 8, where it mentions that. Don't be like the pagans who are just super repetitive in their prayer. So don't think that just because you're super repetitive, it means the Most High hears you. but you have a lot of people that do that, right? So, you know, in your prayer, like, you know, you shouldn't do that. But like, anyways, going into these things, like we say things that don't make sense even spiritually. And a lot of people will even tell you, you know, pray. This is what a lot of people say, at least. Pray the word back to the Most High. So you're just praying the word to the word. And I get that, and I agree with that mostly. So if we're going to pray the word back to the word, we should know the word and not just pray what people tell us to or things like that. You know, you said, why would God? Well, I'm not talking about God. I'm talking about Elohim. God is a Germanic deity, but I think I get what you're saying. You're saying, why would God allow you to suffer so much? Well, number one, I wouldn't. The Most High, he basically deals with consequences, just like you do. You have every right to make any choice that you want, and also to be attached to anything that you want. If you're part of a system that's causing you a lot of pain, then I would ask you, you know, what can we do to help you to detach from that? No, I'm definitely not. Well, I don't know what you mean by evangelical, but I'm not part of evangelical churches, I guess, if that's what you're saying. You know, but I would going back to the original question that I was talking about. I would say, like, what are you attached to that causes those things, right? Even the root word, as Minister Tamara taught us, the root word of root part of suffering literally means to choose to go through. So I would start asking yourself, what are you part of? For example, if you're saying I'm in pain, I would start asking, what food are you eating, or even were you eating? If you're going through frustration in relationships, I would ask you if you are somebody that's into dating or somebody that's into being married. There's a difference between the two. You know, I would ask you, what do you speak over yourself? You know, I would ask you, who is the Most High in your life? Like, if we're still saying God, we're probably not dealing with Elohim. So who is he? What do your prayers even look like? You know, what is it? James chapter 1, verse 8, everybody always goes to: a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, right? But what about the fact that if you're dealing with that scripture, it actually talks about when you have to live what you pray. And if you don't live what you pray, then you're going to be unstable in all your ways. That's actually the context, right? So even as far as your communion or your communication or your prayer, you know, like, may I keep, like, let's keep this 100. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in my short experience and what I do. When I say short, you know, it's still decades, but still, like, in my short experience in life and trying to address these things and live life righteously and be better and help others. And people will be mad and yelling and cussing people out all day. And then we'll be sitting there asking me, Kofi, why do you think that I'm going through this? And I'll be like, and I just be look. I can't say anything. I'm not loud, but I just be looking at people, like, in my family. Like, I got that a lot. Like, you know, my father's side, my mother's side too. It'd be like a lot of people who are beefing all day, every day, and then they'd be like, "Man, why am I going through blah blah?" And I just be kind of looking at them as a child. Even sometimes you just like y'all the one that taught me you reap what you sow. Like, all y'all be out here doing is yelling at each other. Of course, like, all we do is sow discord. Right. What'd you say? You said Minister 9 said we are accepting things instead of speaking a thing. Yeah, true. What we speak as well. You said you believe in the Most High and you believe in his word, but your marriage still fell apart. Well, what is marriage? Did you marry somebody who was pre-qualified to be a husband? Were you pre-qualified to be a wife? You see what I'm saying? Like, what are we attached to? I'm not trying to say that you're a bad person. I'm trying to say we're attached to some things that aren't necessarily his word. You see, like, for example, in our culture, from ages 0 to 3, you train a boy that nothing more than he is a boy. If he learns other things, that's great, but you focus on him being a boy, right? Ages 4 to 6, you focus on weaning him from his mother. So he might not be drinking milk from his mother anymore, but you're weaning him from his mother. He's not as much a mama's boy. Why? So that when he reaches ages 7 to 9, he's going to do what his father does, right? And that's where the teaching and stuff comes from. Then ages 10 to 12, you focus really, really heavy on all the educational pieces. Ages 13 to 15, you make sure that you teach them what it is to be an adult male. Ages 16 to 18, you teach them on what it is to be a husband. Ages 19 to 21, you give him his inheritance. You go ahead, you give him out to the world, and you say, okay, at age 22, I taught you everything there is. Time for you to go out there. Here's your inheritance. Not when I die, but now that you're still alive, here's your inheritance. Go ahead, do what it is that you do, son. right? Do what it is that I taught you. And then when you're in your work, while you're in your work, you will find a wife, right? When you find that wife, you present her with your resume as far as what are your goals, what's your dreams, what's your visions, what are you submitted to? Because if she's going to be in submission, you must be in submission to the same mission. It's not submission, it's submission. We teach you those things, right? So now that you're into the same mission, you're following what your parents did, whatever your father did, you do, whatever money's coming in, you're keeping those things up, right? All those different things, and you have your own land. Then we meet your daughter. We meet their parents. Everybody says they're fine. She's going to go prepare herself for you. You're going to come back on here. You're going to start doing what's called building a mansion, which is an add-on to what mom and dad already had. So it's the land, whatever, you're going to build an attachment. And as soon as you build that, then no man knows the date or the hour except the father. I'm going to watch over it. I'm going to say, oh boy, you know what? You're going to need something. And I know out of my experience, mama like this. And I heard that she's kind of like your mama. So you need to make sure you got more eyes on that stove and this and that and this and that. And you're going to build this thing up. And then once you finally finish building it up, then at the end of it, what are we going to do? Then as the father, I say, okay, you're ready for your wife, go bring her in. And when you guys have children, she's able to actually have us as a family and even others come onto land that we own where she can be protected and she can make sure that she can heal and do what she's supposed to do as a mother so that while she's younger, she's able to develop these children, things like that or whatever. And then once you guys get a nice hold on things and have some money and you can even have maybe some people that you can hire to help you at home and stuff, now you can go to your land where you are, and you can start building that up so that your children can build up and we can have this thing called generational wealth, right? Now, all those things that are said, how many of those things were we looking for in a husband when we first got married, right? So he would know about the Most High. He would study his work, because even in becoming an adult male, that's where that bar mitzvah or bar mitzvah, right? That's where that comes into to where when he hits a certain age, he's supposed to be ready to go, including on his knowledge of the Most High, where I'm supposed to, and maybe even have, if I want to, have a group of other men that are going to be in front of him as a boy and say, hey, or as a boy turning into a man and say, hey, okay, quote, what does the scripture say? What does the scripture mean? What do we do as far as culture to this? How are you going to honor your wife? Like, we're supposed to ask certain questions or whatever, and he has to prove himself. Just like people do in the military, by the way, when you get ready to get a new rank, right? Especially if you're like in the Navy, not so much unless you're like a chief or you're getting certain officer ranks, but in other military services like the Army, Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, they're going to have you come in front of a board, and the board is going to ask you questions, especially when you start becoming an NCO. They're going to ask certain questions because you're going to lead men and lead women, and you need to make sure that we can depend on you to know these things. So they're going to ask you certain things specific to your rank even. Right? You said put that list on TikTok. Oh, that's not a bad idea. We can try and do that. I don't know what I'm gonna do today. Today's gonna kind of be a rest day for me, I guess. Well, not really, but but I'll see if we can make that happen. Right? Like those things are culture. Right? And we're not looking for those things culturally. We're looking for everything else except what's culturally. So, we're having problems. You said Isaiah 43:26. Let's see if we can look that up real quick. We're way over time now. I was going to be on here for a little longer, but we're way over time, so I can't stay. But let's see, Isaiah 43:26. Put me in remembrance. Let us plead together. Declare thou that thou mayest be justified. Right? Well, it's just basically talking about. So first of all, Isaiah 43. If you go to Isaiah 43 verse 1 is talking about. I think they were talking about. It sounds like they're talking about a list of, what age range you're supposed to do what or whatever in order to get ready for marriage and things like that. But Isaiah chapter 43 verse 1, when you start off with Isaiah 43:1, it starts off with, "Who shall believe our report?" Right? So this is talking about a report that Israel should be able to say that somebody's not believing the prophet. Remember, people started ignoring Isaiah so much that the Most High actually commanded him to walk around naked just so that the shock value would cause people to listen to the word, right? That's how uninterested people were in the word of Yah, right? So what was I going to say? I lost where I was. Oh, yeah, Isaiah 43 verse 1. So who shall believe our report? Right? And when you're dealing with those things, it talks about basically like a report and what we're supposed to have and certain blessings and things. So by the time you get down to Psalm 43 and you said 26, and it's talking about put me in remembrance. Remembrance is saying to remember. Remember is not the same as recall or as memory. Remember means that I was once a member of something. Something has happened that's made me dismembered, cut off. And so now when I want to be remembered, have something brought back to remembrance, it needs to be put back into what is membership, right? So this is what we're, so this is what we're dealing with and things of that nature. So, but yeah, at this point we're way over. I knew we were going to go over some today, but we're way over. So unless there's really any questions, comments, or concerns that we haven't already discussed, if so, I might have to just tell you to go look on, YouTube or whatever. But really, actually, even at this time, I think it's. And thank you again, Sister Burns. At this time, I'm just going to go ahead and take my leave for today. So we appreciate you all. Thank you for being on. We hope that you guys got a lot out of this, those who were on longer than others. If not, once again, we record these things, we put them on YouTube. So we took a little break from this tomorrow. I guess I'll be on this evening as well. So we'll see what we're talking about this evening, Kofi_42. We'll do a little Patreon thing somewhere in the middle of this day as well for you guys to be able to look at Patreon, Kingdom Patreon fam. But thank you all for being on. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for hanging in there. I know we keep talking about this stuff over and over again, but I think you guys are starting to see more and more this stuff open up and the importance of us really acknowledging and recognizing where we need to go and how we need to live this thing. And so I'm excited about it, especially when my wife comes on next Thursday, or not, is it next Thursday? Whatever the first Thursday of next month is. I think it is next Thursday, right? December 1st. And I'm excited about that when she comes on in the evening, because we're really going to be able to break down a lot of this stuff as well. And, she's been learning a lot and growing a lot and bringing a lot of interesting questions and things as far as, our culture based off of some of this H2N stuff and things like that. But thank you guys for your likes, for your shares, for your gifts, those who give any, even some of you donate not just your gifts and time and stuff, but even your energy, effort, and even sometimes even give donations, offerings, and even tithes. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. As far as classes go, because classes have just kind of been jacked. So as far as classes go, there's going to be, I think the best way to do classes to end it, because so many people, we've had so many issues and we had so much trials and tribulations. Classes, I'm going to reach out to you guys and we're just going to do some one-on-one stuff for you guys. So some of you take multiple classes. We might do more than one on here or there, but there's so many different things. We have recordings, but even on those, it's kind of all over the place. So those who have different classes, at least with me. Now, if you have herbalism too, the Honorable Maya Elder Mind, she still will be handling her stuff on Fridays. Just where we're at, I'm just gonna have to do a lot of one-on-one stuff because everybody's in such a different position. So we will end correctly. And I think for marriage class, we'll still make sure we have at least one more session where we can do some Q&A stuff for marriage to end that one. But for all the other ones, we'll make sure we just hit you guys with some one-on-one stuff because it's literally gotten all over the place. And for me to act like I can just pull everything back together, it's not going to work that way. So we'll make sure that we do that for you guys so we can be obedient to that and we can hopefully have everything together by the time that last couple of weeks of December, where we can start again on classes. By the way, don't forget December 19th, Women in Red. Don't forget December 31st, Watch Night Service. And thank you guys again. So we're going to keep on going, living in that which we have pursued. # Finish Strong. Once again, look us up on YouTube, TikTok, podcast, Facebook. We appreciate your time, everybody. We hope that you guys are safe today, no matter what you decide to do with your day. Just please be safe out there. And we look forward to talking to you guys later this evening. And we'll have a little bit of Patreon stuff out as well to continue some of the stuff we've been talking about with the H2N stuff and everything. So thank you again. We operate in the spirit of humility. And we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you, Dal. I appreciate you. And we know we can't do this without you. And prayerfully you feel the same. And prayerfully you feel the same about the Most High. So I guess I'll say Shabbat Shalom since it is a new moon. We don't necessarily have to do Shabbat per se, but, Shabbat Shalom to those. And to others, whatever you're doing with the day, we're thankful, we're grateful, we're appreciative, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Please check out my wife, as always, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And she makes many different tinctures, which are just natural medicines that she goes out, forages, and makes things from scratch. So she's actually trying to get her supply up a little bit right now. But once, just give her a little bit of time. But even if you want to put some orders in or whatever, just realize that you might have to just be a little patient. But we thank you guys. We appreciate you even for your patience. Thank you guys for helping us with the coat drives. Thank you guys for helping us with many things we're doing around the world. And we appreciate you all. And I look forward to talking to you guys very soon. So I'm going to take my leave. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Please remember, as always, just your affirmations: Romans 8:1, Romans 8:11, Romans 8:18, Romans 8:19, Romans 8:28, and that little bonus as well, Romans chapter 8, verse 37, that you are more than conquerors. And we look forward to talking to you guys very soon. So as always, we appreciate you. And as always, we want you to remember, Yastel, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat Shalom. Also, pain-free is the tincture for this month. Thank you, babe. So, for December. Wait a minute, hold on. November. For the month of November, is the tincture is dealing with pain, being pain-free. Hallelujah. So thank you guys again. We appreciate you once again, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.